We'll open this special meeting this evening and go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, or where should we start, Dr. Porras?
Roll call and public comments about the agenda.
Thank you so much. If I can't see it, it can't exist. Okay, well, let us please open the meeting as I did, and we will take a roll call presently.
Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Trustee Rivera.
Present.
Trustee Pat.
Here.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Here.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson is out.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent.
Here. Are there any questions or concerns about this evening's agenda? Okay, seeing none, well,
Any public comments?
any public comments?
Have any public?
Excellent. Okay, great. Nobody at this time.
Move in a second to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I second it. Motion was made to adopt the agenda by Dr. Rivera, seconded by Trustee Christy Dawson. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson.
Yes.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Pat.
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Aye.
All right, next we'll do Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin tonight, I first want to thank two trustees specifically who had done a lot of work on this earlier in the year. I know Trustee Brian Swanson did a couple of days of work, which had meetings with folks offering guidance and homework and all kinds of stuff. And Trustee Carolyn Swanson additionally did a lot of work. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your efforts on our behalf, which help us update our policies and make sure we're in good standing and that everything is reflective of the board and what it thinks currently. So thank you guys so much for your good work. I would like to now introduce Csba, who is going to be assisting us tonight because there's things to take care of. And since she has a lot of expertise in this, we appreciate your time and efforts to assist us. Thank you.
Of course, it's my pleasure to be here. Good afternoon or evening to everyone at home and to folks in the room today. My name is Csba Stewarts. I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Governance Technology at CSBA. That's the California School Boards Association. So we will be here with you this evening, or I, representing the organization, will be working with you on the 9,000 section of your board policy manual. That is your board bylaws. So we have previously completed a full review of your entire board policy manual. That is called a policy development workshop. This is an extension of that process to be able to make sure that we have full buy-in of the board on every single bylaw in that section and make sure that there's any other feedback acknowledged or taken at this point to finalize that section. So I'm going to start with just a really quick overview of the process, what we did at the workshop, what the editing process looks like, the samples and how they function, and then we'll get into your specific district's bylaws, and then we'll start going through the previous edits that were made. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay. I will do my best with the technology piece. So I'm sharing now, hopefully you can see this. It is our overview of CSBA sample policies document. If that's not visible, thanks for letting me know. I don't think there's, oh, I think I can make it full screen. There we go. So just in a nutshell, what we do in our policy development workshops is we take the participants through our samples. Our samples are comprised of 4 types of policy documents: the board policies, administrative regulations, board bylaws, and exhibits. Tonight we'll be focused on your board bylaws. In the policies themselves, there's a further, sorry, this menu's. breakdown of kind of how we have things titled or numbered. Those all follow CSBA's typical recommendations, so they align with the sample policies that we use as a reference. The sections as they're laid out here cover the entire scope of what it takes to run a school district. So the zeros would be the philosophy, goals, objectives, and comprehensive plans, all the way through the 9,000s, which is the bylaws of the board. So we won't need to get into any of the other specific types of documents. The only things we'll be looking at today are bylaws and some exhibits. Moving forward, just so you can get a sense for how to edit, what we typically recommend or say is there's content language and then there are instructions. At the top of each policy, you're going to see notes. Those notes are kind of the instructions, the background, the legal citation, any other best practices, recommendations, case law. Then there's the content of the policy itself. And so this might be a little small. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can make this bigger, but I'll try to read to make sure that you guys are capturing all of that. So the legal citations look like code sections. So for example, ed code, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are direct citations from the law. Those are sections that really shouldn't be modified because as much as we would like to, we cannot legislate from right here. So we can't change the law. We can strike out sections that are not applicable to you all. If you don't have a program, if it's not specific to something you all do here, let's say it covers high school and you only serve K through 8. So those are the kinds of things we can delete completely. Otherwise, we want to focus on the language that says optional, right? So those are highlighted usually with option 1, 2, or 3. And our goal will be to come up with the option that's the best fit for your district. Any questions about the citations, the note boxes, or the options? The last thing we'll be doing is making sure we fill in any and all blanks. So these are CSBA offers sample policies that have to fit more or less over 1,000 school districts. So there are going to be places where you can modify language to specify, right, the number of board members maybe, or the number of years someone could serve in a position. So those are the things that need to be filled in at the end of this review session. Whether we come to a final decision about that today or not, I think we'll determine, you all will determine that. But the goal will really be to get the options selected, fill in any and all blanks, remove any sections that are not applicable to your district. Other things like global changes. So for example, if you all refer to yourself as Board of Trustees and we have Board of Governors, those are global changes that we'll make back at the office. Okay. As far as items that you might want to delete or keep or otherwise edit, we're looking for one of basically 5 sets of instructions at the end of the day at the top of each policy. It's keep it. Do you want to keep the CSBA language, right? That just means that you're okay with our samples as they're written. We might make some edits here and there, maybe strike out a line, change a term, but for the most part, you're okay with the CSBA sample. The second one would be use district. This means that you already have a version of this bylaw and you'd want to keep the version that you have because you've done significant amounts of work on it. It's very specific to you all, or you have recently revised it with CSBA sample and it's already adopted. So let's just go with the one we have. Remove would be just to delete a policy altogether. So just completely deleting it. Though obviously we can't delete anything that's mandated by law. I'll let you know when we get to those, if we do get to anything that you have a desire to delete. And then the last one is really edits below. The edits below sometimes reflect like larger kind of rewrites. We won't be doing much of that in this session. We may review something that someone has tried to wordsmith a little bit, but I don't think we have the time or capacity, I don't think today, to really get into rewriting complete sections. If we get to one where there's a significant amount of discussion, I'll probably put a note and try to capture that discussion on the side. And then eventually we'll need to get to a place where we make a final decision about that language or that topic or that issue, okay? So I'm not gonna mark any of these edits. I might say for further discussion. Just because we're not going to make substantive like rewrites of paragraphs today. Otherwise, those are the directions I'm looking for. This is a really, really small version of the front page of one of the CSBA samples. For those of you at home, you can kind of see how it's broken down. That's what we'll see in a moment. We're going to move to our software tool where all of these are housed to make the actual edits. But this is just a picture of that. So you can see some of the things I was referencing. So the code numbers, the title, the last time CSBA revised it, that's all at the top in the top bar. Then there are the CSBA notes. All of that comes out of the final version of the bylaw once you adopt it. That's just our background, our instructions. You can see there's a little, it's hard to see in this room, but there's a little In the second paragraph, you'll notice that there's ed code cited at the end of it. That's a paragraph we obviously can't just strike and change the law. But if the law is not applicable here, then we could remove that section. So it's just kind of showing you that there are places where you can modify, places where you can't modify. And so we'll get into the meat of it. Let's see if there's anything else here. Cross references, legal and management references, those are all items that follow the policy around. We don't edit those at all. They're kind of static references to helpful documents, websites, attorney general opinions, ed code references. Those are not things we're going to modify in the course of our conversation today. They do get updated on the back end when we revise our policies, but otherwise we wouldn't be engaged in new citations here, as those are static. So those are not unique to each district. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to reshare our Gamut software. That's where we're going to make the edits. So if you give me one moment here. And this is your new GPP site. GPP is Gamut Policy Plus. Maybe we'll just spend one quick moment talking about the process. So a couple months ago now. Okay, the time is flying. I don't know where those 3 months went, but 3 months ago, we started this process with you all. So far, we have already worked through your zeros through 7,000s. All of those we've received final edits on. Those will come back before the board along with your 9,000s for a first and second reading. So that will be your opportunity to see all the other edits that were made. When you get it back, those will be the recommended changes based off of your policy working group, everyone that met together 3 months ago to work through the samples and make your fine line edits and basically do what we're doing today for the rest of the manual. So they've done that work. So at the end of all of this, we will clean up these documents. Everything that you see here that has kind of a yellow line is a draft. So ultimately, you'll have a completely updated version of your manual that's live and available to the public. And then you'll also have a working space for your admin team to come in and make edits as CSBA updates policy, as well as if there are any things that necessitate an update here in the district. So it'll be a good tool to use. Some of you may be already familiar with Gamut and its previous iterations. This is the newest version of Gamut, pretty user-friendly from my perspective, and hopefully it will be for you all as well. So why don't we just jump in here? I'm going to open up. So the first, if there's any questions maybe about format right now, like what you're looking at. No? Okay. So I'll open up the first policy. We can just take a quick scan at it. What I might start to do is, why don't we just start for now? We'll just go through each one. We'll see if there are any markups. If there are no markups, we can just all say it's okay to move to the next one, because I want to focus on the edits that were made by the board members a couple months back.
Yes, and just my understanding, there are about 36 things specifically we're looking at time-wise.
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So I'll just pop this one open. So this is board bylaw 9000. The title of the bylaw is here, role of the board. This is CSBA's original adoption date. And the reason it says pending here is because this is in draft on your site. So pending just means it hasn't been adopted yet. Okay. So I don't have any notes here on this one. If you guys are okay with it, we'll move to the next.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just easy to click through.
Does that, just for clarity's sake, would this have been one of the keep CSBA?
So let me go ahead and.
Just for reference point.
Yes. So if there's, here, let me see if I can do two things at one time. So we pulled down the PDF of all of your documents, and they would have kind of notes in green if there were any edits. Basically, if anyone said anything other than we want to keep it, it would be notated here at the top. Can someone do me a quick favor, because I don't have the parallel document up. There should be like one with some highlighting at the top in green. I just want to pull that up to make sure in this view I can see it. Would you give me the bylaw number and I can try to open that one?
The first one with anything green.
9100.
Is that a page number on that too, Frank? Is that 11?
11.
Yeah,
11.
okay.
So I will go open 9100 so you can see the difference between something that has no edits and something that does have edits. So you can see here that this is Carolyn saying, these are the changes. Otherwise, if there's no comments, we're keeping CSBA language. If it was something you wanted to get rid of, you would have marked it delete.
Okay.
Yeah. So this really is the first one we have to edit. Do you guys want to just click through the rest just so we can do our due diligence? You can see that there's no edits, or are we okay starting here?
I'm okay starting here.
Let's click, just so
Click
we,
through, just so we can
nobody
show
thinks
folks, yeah.
we're shuffling through too.
Yes,
too
I don't want to
quickly.
move too fast.
No, that's good. I
Okay.
think you're doing exactly right because we
Okay.
want to get to the greens.
Yep.
We get it.
Yep. So the next one, so we looked at that first one. There were no edits. Question?
Ready to go.
Do I have the ability to log?
Yes, it might have been a little bit easier. So what do you want to log into the Assembly website? So what I can do really quickly is just put this in the chat in Zoom, and then if you have a login. Oh, so you're not logged into Zoom.
Possible to just email
Yeah.
the board the logins?
Yeah, I can really quickly, I'm gonna stop sharing just for 1 second because I have to pull it.
I've got it. My passwords and all that. stuff.
Perfect. If you have your password, that makes it really easy, and I can send an email to whomever needs the site. Does that work?
Yeah, well, if she sends it to PGUSD board, or what's that email address that goes to the board members?
Yeah, JPAF at PGUSD.
Okay, give me
Well,
one.
unless everybody needs it.
I don't know.
I'm right here. We're sharing.
You guys got it.
There, yeah,
We're-
there you-
John,
So
they're
do you want me
using
to
the
just
PDF
go ahead and
version.
email it to you directly?
Kidding you.
The PDF version has all the markups on it. It's just not an active.
Put it in your pocket, lock it. So this is not-
It's the last file that Mandy sent you.
Okay.
Is there an email I can send that to really quick? Okay. Okay,
But we can see it up there, correct?
and I'm right here. I could just send it. All right, I'm gonna send it to Mandy, if that's okay. Okay, I have Mandy's email. Okay,
Andy, are you getting the login then, or the link?
She'll know soon.
it'll be one website for everyone, and then you just have to use your login and password, and as long as you have a login and password,
We're good.
yeah, yes. Yes, so they won't be able to log in though, no.
And the login and password is just something that they had previously.
They would have had to be previously given, and if you just use your login, you can kind of,
So John would have.
'Cause we didn't do the work.
You did the.
But that guy right to your left did.
Yeah, so you guys can share it.
Yeah. Okay, that's been sent. So let's move along if we
Okay.
can.
sure, no problem. So I'm going to reshare my screen. Everyone has now the site. The reason that things are password protected is it just gives you access to a different layer of the website. So this is all publicly accessible information. Once the policies are adopted in draft status, you're not the public wouldn't be necessarily looking at drafts. So that's
Okay.
the only difference there. So I want to share in the chat really quickly. Okay, so I will not be able to share in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. And then we will go to 9005 governance standards. So
Yes.
if you have the PDF. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask, so forgive me. Let me grab you the correct one. Pacific Grove, okay. Copy link. Sending to Mandy. Okay. Alrighty.
California or Iowa?
Okay. Oh, can everyone see again? Okay, and we're back. So
Here we go, Joan.
board bylaw 9005 has no edits, so that's a keep.
Keep, please.
All right. And so you'll see me clicking twice, and it's because this is the, I don't want to, how do I call it? This is the sample, and then the yellow, when you see it on the other screen, is the draft. So
Okay.
same document, just will have markups if there are any. So 9,010, no edits.
Keep.
Okay. Right. 9,011, no edits.
Keep, please.
9,012, no edits.
Does, I have a question about the board shall not outside of authorized meeting. Does this have to do with anything? Facebook or talking amongst ourselves or anything? Does that fit into this particular section? This, the second paragraph, it says a majority of the board shall not outside of an authorized meeting use a series of electronic communications of any kind directly or through intermediaries to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item.
That sounds like.
It's all Brown Act, yeah.
So we're already adhering.
So we're just fine. So that doesn't have to do with sites or that we have or anything like that.
But that was discussed. Maybe that-
Sure.
That was discussed at the workshop piece of it as well. And the issue was conformity to Brown Act and what constitutes a serial meeting and if any communications were doing that. And so this is aligning with the requirements.
So
of
we're
Brown
in
Act.
good shape.
So that's as it stands currently with Brown Act, we are. If there's any revisions that come into play, if any changes in the law or any changes in the ed code, once this is all adopted, CSBA will get those updates to us and we can make those revisions.
Okay,
The only thing
great.
different on this here is it says a majority of the board shall not outside of an authorized meeting use a series of electronic communications, et cetera. It's like not a single board member can really, it's like when it comes to,
That's what the document that was sent to us. from
yeah,
the
what
council.
I think Lou had sent that, right? It's like, but I think we all saw that too as board members. If another board member posts something on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, fellow board members cannot post an emoji,
Thumbs
probably
up.
can't even forward. It's like you can't touch it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is already in compliance. So, and no green, so keep, please.
And I would just also add that this is
Uh-huh.
a direct citation from the law. So this isn't something we would edit because when we're pulling and we have that parens at the end that says government code and we're citing code, it's a direct citation. from the law.
Perfect. I just wanted clarification on that. So now I have it. Thanks so much.
No problem. Okay. Okay.
Problem remains that
Thank you. The problem remains that it's easy to end up with parallel meetings, right? Series meetings. And outside of an authorized meeting is a series of electronic communications of any kind. I suspect there's not better language there, but this is, and it's still problematic. So
Well-
I would say clearly the state has put in the most perfect of perfect languages.
But it is something we'll pay attention to as we go forward. I think
Sure.
that's,
It's been there actually too. I mean, it's not new.
It's not new. I would also say there's a little bit of a difference between what you're saying and what you're doing. So I think here's where we're outlining what the ideal situation is. This wouldn't necessarily give you every possible scenario. It's meant to kind of be a broadly applicable policy. If there are more nuanced rules, requirements, things that you want to adhere to in order to make sure you are realizing this, I would say that's probably good grounds for discussion for practice, but for your policy, I think this meets your requirement. So I think that's my, in a nutshell, way of saying there's lots of discussion to be had about things that in our virtual world might constitute a meeting. This meets a requirement, I think, in terms of just what you want to have in policy.
So let's just go into one paragraph here, if you don't mind. Take 5 minutes. It's 3 minutes. Whenever a board member uses a social media platform to communicate with the public about district business or board activities, it shall not block access to a member of the board based on the viewpoint expressed by that individual. So I think taken literally, this means, let us pretend I have a website. I have 1,000 regular viewers. And that's totally public. I maintain a separate website or Facebook page, and I have 3. And I'm discussing board business on that. That now has to be a public website as well, based on this.
So what I cannot do, unfortunately, is advise. So what I can share is this is what we believe would be best policy based on best practice. This isn't something that comes right out of law. This is CSBA giving a recommendation. This is something you could modify if you wanted to, but in terms of interpretation and how to implement this or what this would look like in practice, I'm unable to.
Because very clearly we would say, well, 3, that's just friends meeting.
Mhm.
30 is a dinner party. It's pretty easy to get to 100.
Mhm.
And now, is that public or not public? And I think that, to me, that would be public. And yet it's very, very easy on a social media platform to be self-contained and claim, oh, my particular echo chamber is mine and can do that. Anyway, I guess there's no.
It warrants more discussion, but for now,
Um,
I think,
it's fine.
like you're saying, this is essentially what
have,
we
so.
need, but it's something to keep our eye on.
And
I do agree.
And I do encourage the discussion part of this. I
Yeah.
think that that's the idea here is this is a starting place, right? To give you a place to understand what the law says, a way to interpret how that would help you function as a district. But in terms of, again, more detailed pieces, I like to say it, I gratefully or not, I'm not an attorney, so we cannot get into kind of some of the nuances of these, but what I was looking for just now when I opened up the edit button is our notes, which will usually give you some background language on that. So I realize they're not in this version. So what I want to have as a reference for us too, I'm going to pull that up, is our samples with notes. And that usually gives us, maybe not all of the ways of interpreting the following language, but maybe a little background that might be helpful. So I'm going to open that up too. So that was 9:05.
9012.
Oh, 9012. Okay. So, paragraph. Okay, so the background on this, I'm just going to read it just for reference so we can all have a place to start from. Board members who use a social media platform to communicate with the public about district business or board activities should be cautious about blocking access to members of the public. In Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University versus Trump, the court held that President Donald Trump's Twitter account was a public forum from which the government may not exclude people based on their views, and that blocking critics from viewing and replying to the account excluded individuals from a public forum in violation of the First Amendment. While there's not a clearly defined rule as to whether a board member's social media account is a public forum, the holding has been used in cases restricting school board members from blocking members of the public from their social media. See Garnier v. Poway Unified School District. So if we want to do a little bit more digging, I think that's a good place to start on ways this has been interpreted. But I don't know if that gives you any other, or if you have any other comment in response.
Well, Lou sent us this decision earlier in the day, or at least Lozano Smith's interpretation and summation of that decision. And it actually leads directly into what I just asked, which is where does this begin and end? Again, 2 people walking, that's not public comment. 3 people, maybe not. 30, probably not. 100, probably, so where does it begin and end? And I think that's ill-defined.
It presents an interesting conundrum, and we might have touched upon this before too, right? It's like if any of us have a website, social media website that allows somebody to post anything, right? So let's say President Dawson, you have a Facebook account, somebody posts something on your account, a fellow board member posts something on your account, you would not be allowed to comment on it. Somebody posting on your account if the other person is the originator of that comment. So it's again an interesting conundrum where it's like somebody could essentially sort of try to co-opt your
Gotcha.
website and say whatever they wanted to, really, or initiate a discussion with the constituency, but that you wouldn't actually be able to participate in.
Okay,
So
so I'm marking this down as discussion now.
For discussion.
Where you have that, the marks, as you say, the stepping off points for different discussions. We are part of this now and we can access that at a later date to kind of have conversations, or is that only available to us with you in the room?
So there, right now, the access that board members have would only be read, right? So you could go in and you could look at it. It wouldn't be to edit and publish because we wouldn't want any individual acting unilaterally to go in and make edits and
Got
publish.
it.
Also, we wouldn't publish anything until it had been reviewed by the entire board and you guys had taken action on it and sent us adoption dates, or we received adoption dates. And basically the administrators who have access to writing capabilities are those that kind of serve the board. So that'd be your superintendent, your executive assistant to the board or to the superintendent. So your ability to go into the tool is to read right now, and that's for good reason. If we wanted to capture any edits or comments, I can put them here. And then when you guys get this back for first reading, you can have the discussion again. In the meantime, I'm happy to engage in any way possible if there's further questions you have to either our legal or your attorneys or whatever is going to lead this to like a fruitful place of decision making. Otherwise, I guess it's easy to step into, we can rework this, but they're also living documents. So you could always adopt this and come back later and say, no, we want to modify,
Gotcha.
or you could, I mean, there's lots of different things you could do with it. But I think for the purposes and scope of today, the question would be, do we want to hold this? Do we want to put any comment or specific question here? As in, we want to take this to, like, what would the next step be to move this one forward for you all?
Well, I would agree with the idea that we adopt it and make a note, and it's something we revisit later if we choose. Does that feel okay? All right, keep it. That's right.
I would agree. So in that case, though, there are only a couple of decisions we could make, which is to keep it or revise it. So are you all interested in keeping this for now and coming back to it? Should that be the note I write on here?
Yes,
yes. Did you say
Please.
it's clear the law is muddy? Write that down.
Law is muddy.
That's
It's the
tattoo
name of a new
worthy,
film.
actually. It's
All
clear the
right.
law
Pat by
is muddy.
producer Path. Okay, here we go.
Very good.
And
Very
so
good.
I'll just share just a little editing tip. So what I'm doing is I'm going to start tracking the changes, which means this should capture any live changes, but you'll see them highlighted, similar to the green marks that your other board member made. So let's see. We'll just say that there's about the interpretation of the law. Does that summarize well?
Yeah, we'll just.
The board will discuss further on first reading.
In the future. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah,
Board may. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the top, then I'm going to say keep
yes.
Yes.
and that's it for now. I think that's as definitive as I
That's
can
it.
get. Okay.
That's perfect.
All right. Yes. All right, so I'm going to save and close on that one, and then. Did we want to refer back to your old policies?
I don't know. I need to look at I don't know off the top of my head. I need to look at our old, our current existing. Then on our current.
Is that-
You're right, because I don't have the mic on,
Turn it on now, so we can.
Already
move
did.
forward. Okay,
right? It says any complaint or request for information should be forwarded to the superintendent's accordance with board bylaws, and as appropriate, communication shall be from media shall be forwarded to the designated district spokesperson. We have consistently said board president shall respond generally. So we've added the flexibility of anyone answering, provided they say that I'm only a single board member.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back to your old policies here. Did we want to have that up as a reference?
I don't, it's up to them in terms of
Okay.
the board, in terms of what.
Well, I didn't find 9012 specifically. We actually have that somewhere else, I'm pretty sure. So,
All I have access to is,
Yeah, but so the new way is saying that anybody can answer.
anybody answer?
Well, we made a decision a few years ago. I mean, I know sometimes people respond individually, but as a rule, and I asked earlier this year if the clerk could do it as well, if needed. But it is nice to have a voice representing versus 5 different people answering their interpretation of what's going
Okay,
on.
So if you open up 9012 and go to the second to last paragraph,
Okay,
Beginning with what words, John?
board members, that doesn't help.
yeah, it's the second to
Shall
Shall
last.
make
make every
every
effort.
1 second.
Right, board members shall make every effort.
Yes,
Bottom of
that one.
Bottom of page 10.
Well, we've said as a rule, we'd like the president to respond.
Yep.
We did that about 3 years ago.
Did we make that part of board policy though, or is that something that we just kind of kicked around and agreed that we would do?
I don't think we ever changed policy, but I think we agreed as a board that that's the best way to handle
I
it.
think it's in the governance handbook.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where we dealt with it. So what do you think?
Well, I've recently, although not routinely, but recently, not done that.
Not
Yeah,
done what?
I guess, Brian, the difference between saying, thanks, I've received this, and a response that says,
You should do this or that.
is, one's a courtesy and one's a.
You
Yeah,
just
I
don't
mean-
want conflicting. It's like talking to mom or dad, right? You
Yeah.
don't want 5 different messages going
I
out.
haven't done that. To be quite frank, so recently what I've done is sometimes when I thought that some of the correspondence that we got was rude or confrontational, I called some people out about it.
Okay,
It wasn't directly like saying, this is what we are doing as a board. It was like, you should be nice.
Yeah.
So maybe that's different.
well, again, maybe this is a keep it, but I do like the idea that there's an agreement that somebody's speaking. I mean, we had John do it the last couple of years. I just think it minimizes confusion, and mixed messages are not good.
I remain okay with that, especially when we're clarifying something,
Yeah.
it's like, this is what is happening, it's like, I do like to have. What I've found recently is like, in just trying to have, especially now that we've got these trustee areas, so our constituency is in some ways smaller. It's
Yeah.
not in others, right? It's like we still represent the entire district, but we have this area now that it's like, I want to know them even more. And I also, again, I just want people to be nice to each other. And so when I see people being awful, I want to engage with them, not in a confrontational way, but a way to sort of try to tamp that down a little bit and let them know that, in the broadest way, that, again, not giving them information or speaking for the board, but just trying to create a little bit more community.
I think that's nice. And the other thing about this that I want to make sure that the caveat is that if each of us then directs Dr. Porras or somebody else to do things so that we might answer that question better, that would make that job
Yeah.
harder.
And that
And
I don't do.
that's a big point, because you don't want that 5 different people are directing the district office. Here's how this should be. What should I do now? Talk to me because I'm going to answer. And 5 different people are saying that. I just think simplifying it, but I think what you're talking about, and I think sometimes people have maybe a relationship with somebody or something. I don't think it needs to be hard and fast. I think it's good to keep this, but I like that we have that tacit agreement among the board. Does that feel okay? You're so mellow. Keep, okay,
So we're still keeping 9012.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next item. 9100, which I believe was the first edit. from Carolyn back in April. Edits below. The note here says to discuss with board how they want to elect offices, rotate or select. And then to update corresponding board bylaw. We'll also go through 9121. That's a separate policy or separate bylaw, if needed, related to how we elect or appoint president and clerk. So she's just basically saying there's corresponding language in 9121 we want to look at depending on how you make edits to this policy or to this bylaw. So let's see.
So is this where we answer rotational or selection?
So I think what might help is just for us to review the item together, if you haven't yet read it. So is it helpful for me to read aloud? It's up to you guys.
I don't think it would hurt.
Okay.
You're the most schooled in all of this.
Especially because we've got people
Sure.
listening and it's nice they know what we're saying.
So I'm gonna go to the sample because I find the notes to be helpful. There is a reference if we need to go back to them. So let's go to 9100. This is our sample that's clean without your edits on it. And let's see. So this is Board Bylaw 9100 organization. Each year, the governing board shall hold an organizational meeting in any year in which a regular election of district board members is conducted. The organizational meeting shall be held within a 15-day period, beginning from the date upon which a board member elected at that election takes place. During non-election years, the meeting shall be held within the same 15-day period on the calendar. That's pretty standard. There's no edits to that section, just so you can see the reference there.
Right.
The day and time of the annual meeting shall be selected by the board at its regular meeting held immediately prior to the first day of the 15-day period. On behalf of the board, the superintendent shall notify the county superintendent of schools of the day and time selected. Within 15 days prior to the date of the annual meeting, the clerk of the board, with the assistance of the superintendent, shall notify in writing all board members and board members elect or members elect of the date and time selected for the meeting. At the meeting, the board shall elect a president, a clerk, and or vice president from its members, appoint the superintendent as secretary to the board, authorize signatures. Go back here, no edits there. Approve, number 4, approve a schedule of regular meetings for the year and a board governance calendar stating the time when the board will address important governance matters. Number 5, designate board representative to serve on committees or commissions of the district, other public agencies or organizations with which the district partners or collaborates. No edits there. Review and consider resources that define and clarify the board's governance and leadership roles and responsibilities, including but not limited to governance standards, meeting protocol, board rules and bylaws, and other board development materials. No edits there. And here we come to the election of officers. The first option gives you the option to, for the board to, or the board shall each year elect one of its members to be clerk or vice president. This member shall be one who previously has not served in office unless all the board's members have previously served in office. After 1 year as clerk/vice president, excuse me, the elected member shall serve 1 year as president of the board. That's the end of option 1. So your board member,
So that's a rotational thing.
yes.
Okay.
So let's go through the second one and then we can kind of have a short
Gotcha.
discussion. So the second option is the board shall every year or each year elect its entire slate of officers. And so the distinction between the two, option 1, if you rotate offices so that each board member has the opportunity to become president, or option 2, each year you're going to, it poses them as opposites, but anyway, I'll just read it as it says, while option 2 is for districts that each year elect their entire slate of officers. So if you do something a little bit different, please revise these to reflect the sequence of offices used in the district. So it's basically saying you can each year elect your entire slate, or you can follow the pattern of board clerk serves or board vice president. I'm not sure which you've used in the past. And then after 1 year as board or clerk or vice president, you would serve as president. Do you guys currently follow a pattern?
Yes, we elect, it says entire slate. It's two, our entire slate of two.
Mhm.
Okay, that's how, that is how we've been doing it previously.
So option 2 is the current practice.
That is the current practice.
And so the only note here, I think this is additional language, and this might be coming from a policy you already have or a bylaw you already have. So there's an addition that talks about the nomination process.
That's right. That's our existing
Language.
language.
So whether or not, so maybe that's just additional language, which again, we can include here if that's the process.
Or-
This one
But
right
this
here.
would probably this would probably go under option 2 and then be an edit for option 2. Up to you all.
So board, there are 3 changes in this right now. One is item 6 on this. If you go up, scroll up a little bit, you say item 6. Review and consider resources that define and clarify the board's governance and leadership roles and responsibilities, including, et cetera. That is a add to our thing. That sounds like that at this meeting, you are reviewing governance standards, protocols, bylaws, all at one time. Seems a little
Big,
big.
very big.
I could be misinterpreting that. I defer to Dr. Porras.
Yes, I believe this is referring to the governance handbook review, and the board does that at a different time than at this
Yes.
meeting. There are many districts that will do it at this time. Will bring the governance handbook up after the election and then say, are there any changes or revisions that we'd like to do to the handbook? And do that at the same time. It's up to the board in terms of what you want to do. I think you would need to clarify in number 6 that this is happening at a different time, or remove it, I suppose.
Or delete it, right? It just doesn't need to be there.
Right.
Yep. You can 100% delete it. It's just a recommendation.
Okay, the thing, I think in past years have kind of thought about that idea of the rotational. You know, I mean, I ran and I remember who didn't vote for me and I've tried to get over it, but I think myself that after being on the board 5 years, it is good to select, not have an automatic, because I think it's important. And what I came to know over many years is part of being the president, I think, is that you want the team to be wanting you at that time to serve, that you embody that leadership quality and that ability to kind of create the team that is the board. So I would tend to say, I don't want it to be automatic. I really like that it's selected and we've rotated. I think it's important just that somebody doesn't do it for 5 years straight. I think you want to make sure people have opportunities to do it. And the other thing, I know this doesn't fit here. I just like vice president better than the word clerk. I think we use clerk here a lot, but I know a lot of other places use vice president.
I like vice president more because I've been clerk a few times, and when I tell people I'm clerk of the school board,
It sounds like
sounds
you're a
less.
secretarial type person, no offense, but you're doing pencil and writing. So I would like to see that, and I'd like to just vote in for the voting and losing number 6.
I think losing number 6 works for me only because we do it elsewhere.
Yeah.
The question, what option 1 is really doing here is saying that if you are vice president, you are moved forward to president the next year, right? Which is possibly the intent of where we wanted to be anyway. So you're rotating in. Now we can lose this member is one who's previously not served in office. That can go away. That
That's
allows you
fine.
to do that, but really you're rotating up into the next position.
Logically.
That's what that does.
Yeah, it kind of preps you.
But not necessarily.
Yeah, what
That's
happens
the man
if,
who loves to be clerk, but not a senator.
Man who would
Vice
be,
president.
yes.
but
Vice
Vice
president.
President, thank you. What
Vice
if,
president.
what if the Vice President isn't there?
What does that mean?
What happens? Well, for example,
Oh, an election coming?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They can't lose the election.
there
That's
is
how that
the,
comes in.
Yes, I mean, then you're with 2 people.
Yeah, you have to go to the next thing. But I do think there's a logic to that year. I mean, I know I did the vice president before becoming president. I found it quite helpful. There was a period of time that I thought Oh my gosh, it may, because he will not be named, did not want to be president. I thought, I haven't been in the meetings. I haven't been sort of privy to that kind of how things roll out. And I felt that was a disadvantage. So I think ideally, you're right. It's nice to have that unless that person just says, I can't do it at this time for whatever reason. But I think it's definitely the best way.
So
Let's
Should
look
we
one
kind
at a
of-
time. Should we talk about 6? Yes, yay or nay?
Well, I think
Oh,
also, we don't have it outlined here specifically. I don't think there's a hard and fast on this, but this is a public meeting and we should at least ask at this point if there's any public comment, anybody wants to interject. Can we ask that just to see if anybody wants to raise a
You
hand?
just
Sam?
did, and I think we should let you.
No raised hands?
Pass,
Okay,
Vice
we've done our
President.
due diligence.
Due diligence,
Former
excellent.
clerk Swanson.
So what we're suggesting is a hybrid.
That's right.
The superintendent serving as secretary of the board shall initiate a nomination process by sending to each board member a form, indicates their interest in serving as clerk for the next year. The clerk is then moved up in position somehow into president in December, and you're really voting 1 year in advance.
What?
So I think what he's saying is that when you're voting for the clerk, you're actually voting for the future president.
And I think there is a comment.
We'd love to hear.
Hi, good evening. Jennifer McNary here. My comment is with regard to the nomination process. To me, this reads like doing the board's business outside of a meeting. If we're nominating people for a publicly held position like president or vice president, and the public isn't part of that process. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Yes,
I can speak to that a little bit if you'd like some clarity in regards to
Sure.
what that process is. What has happened thus far historically for the district is that the nomination process is kind of a misnomer. It's really an interest in office form. And the idea is that the superintendent would send a form to the current trustees and say, are any of you interested in running for president and for clerk vice president? The form would get returned back to our office after a couple of weeks. And then the tally of that then goes out to the board with these are the people that are interested in running or interested in being nominated. No decisions are made. It's just simply revealing to the rest of the board, these are the people that are interested. So the part of that, I think, well, at least 16 years ago, part of the interest was that they didn't want to have anyone embarrassed publicly who may have wanted to run and didn't have perhaps not an interest in that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But I think the intent was not so much to make decisions outside of the board, but just simply to tally who is interested so the board knows when the time comes. And then what happens is those nominations, then the process begins at the board meeting. Are there any nominations for the office of president? A person can self-nominate or nominate someone without a second. That it was really more an expressed interest in office than anything else. And it was not required. So we send them out, but we don't necessarily get a response. Someone may choose not to, and that's fine too. And then they just would come up at the meetings. So
So
it's
you
not a
can-
required, it wasn't a required response document. It was just simply,
and you can self-nominate.
yes, correct.
That's in there too.
That's that was our current, that's our current
Right.
process.
I don't think the way we do it right now is broken. And I do think that the roles are very, very different. And they're often different depending upon who has fulfilled those roles over the years too. You know, in the broadest sense, the president is running the meetings and the clerk is helping run those meetings essentially, right?
Right.
It's like, and there as backup if the president is not there to run the meetings. You know, in my roles off and on, it's like it's been there as backup and to pay attention to some of the simplest things, making sure that nobody runs the clock too long, or
Exactly.
that, again, that we're just following the order. So Again, I guess to go back to where I started, I don't think that it's broken anyway, and I think we can keep what we already have here. I don't see a need for any kind of change.
Okay, but number 6, are we all in agreement that can go away? So please delete number 6.
What is, where is number 6 again?
We're right after 5.
Right
No,
above election of
governance handbook.
officers.
On what, well, I'm trying to figure out what page on what document,
11.
page 11. Okay, sorry, I went past it. Okay. Sorry.
And that's what John had read.
Yes.
It's just saying we're going
okay
to
to
do all the
lose-
governance stuff
I'm
at the
okay to
same
lose
meeting.
6,
I
yes.
think it's been quite effective for us. Like you said, it's not broken. I've really enjoyed when we've had times that we've really examined the governance thing. It's not like just tagged on at the end of this, trying to kind of say, yeah, we're good with all this. We've given it kind of special focus, and I think it's really worked well when needed.
So Brian, are you suggesting that the language that starts at option 1 not be necessary?
Sorry.
Which language?
Well, our current language is simpler. The board shall each year elect one of its members to be president and one to be vice president. Each is elected to serve a 1-year term. And then we go into the nomination process.
Yeah, I'm not in
Yes.
favor of option 1 because that changes what we presently have.
So you would like to keep our existing language,
Correct.
which starts on board bylaw 9100. Shall each year elect one of its members to be president, one to be vice president clerk. Sorry, we'll just go with vice president.
Yeah.
So really quick, I'm going to interject because I want to capture what you're saying so that I can put a note. So you'd like it to read, the board shall each year elect one of its members to be vice president. And
President and vice president, both
And
are.
are we going to lose clerk? Going to lose that term?
I'd like to lose clerk. Feels like
Dr.
somebody
Forrest,
working
can
at
we
the
do that
grocery
without
stores.
messing anything up?
I'm sorry.
Can we lose the term clerk and just?
The only, and again, well, this is just me chiming in from reading legal documents. Oftentimes when we have documents that come from the Department of Ed or their signature forms, you may recall on some of the resolutions and that kind of thing, it'll say clerk of the board. It won't say vice president. I don't think that's an issue.
I've seen it both ways. I've
Yeah.
seen it a lot of times that it says vice president and I go, oh, we call it clerk here.
Yeah.
So I like vice president, and if it says clerk, we'll know who they mean.
and that's, I believe what you have in your adopted language already is vice president?
Yep.
Okay.
It is now.
We didn't.
It actually has
until now.
both. It says vice president / clerk.
Oh,
I'm
I
okay
see.
with that.
I
too.
So,
see.
so, and what you have
So-
suggested is that we go to this model where we are electing the vice president clerk, who then is the next year president. That's what you've written. Is that correct?
So I've written, the board shall each year elect one of its members to be president and vice president / clerk. Is that appropriate?
President and vice president.
That's
Slash clerk.
existing language. Each is selected to a 1-year term. That's the final line in our existing policy.
Each is selected to a 1-year term.
Yes.
We're not voting a year in advance for the person who will then become president.
Well, I think it can be that it looks that that's the way of the world, but it's not. I mean, maybe somebody doesn't do a job, doesn't follow through, doesn't come to many meetings, something happens, then you're not just bound to have that person. If it's not at that time a good fit.
And the board would decide.
Yes,
So.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read it back just for posterity. So the board shall each year elect one of its members to be president and vice president / clerk. Each is elected to a 1-year term. And the nomination process, the superintendent and you all, that's the exact language that was in there previously.
Yes.
So I won't read all
We
of
like
that.
that.
Vacancies is, we're going to keep that here.
Yes.
Okay,
The vacancies part says that if we lose a member for whatever reason, we select a new.
Yep.
perfect. I'm going to just correct the typo. And the last blank on this page is no board shall serve more than blank consecutive years or year in the same office. If we go back here, this would really be for option 2. I don't see why you couldn't identify a term limit, but this is not required language and certainly
could
doesn't
also
have to go
strike
with
it.
option 1. Yeah, it doesn't go with option 1.
I would suggest that we actually keep it with the 2 consecutive years,
No more than 2.
more than 2. I mean, the reason I was 3 was an accident.
My illness,
And that was,
I had a
that was
horrible
4.
accident of nature.
But no, in fact, somebody resigned mid-year.
Yeah.
And
But you
frankly,
stepped in
that's-
for me for a third
that-
year.
That was a
because of
4th year.
4th year there.
And it
look,
was a mistake.
it was
And
a
I concede
big-
it was a mistake that I had 3 years in a row. And even though it was a default and not purposeful, you know, that's how it happens. But we should actually write that in.
I think 2 is good. I mean, can't you override that, Dr. Porras? I mean, it's in here and it's 2, but by some crazy freak thing you say,
Well, this is, as my understanding goes, these are your policies. So
So-
you can ultimately make an adjustment or change. You know.
I got you. So I think 2 is good. I mean, you don't want someone to go and sit. I agree. 2, do you think that sounds okay?
I mean, this is a shall, I will note, so it's not a may. So as we were going through these during the workshop, the shall and may was very thrown at us quite a bit in terms of just be careful that this is language. So just making that clear. So it would require a change of policy to, in the midst of needing to make that decision, you would need to change the policy.
I think that there is no, 2 is a good number. 2 says something happened to the, you know, something happened, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, does that feel okay?
Yep.
So we're in good shape on this one.
Yep, so I have every direction we need to move this one forward. There's no other blanks. I'm gonna delete the note that says the board needs to decide which option to use because it was a comment to you all
Yeah,
and
we
we're
don't need
having
it.
the discussion, so gonna get rid of that. Okay, and we're okay to keep with edits is what I'm going to say.
okay.
And can I just put PGUSD board? Normally, we don't make decisions for you, so I usually have to attribute it to somebody. I haven't been doing keep because again, it's the consensus.
Yes,
With this one, because there are edits, I'll just say PGUSD board
yes,
recommended. Okay.
that works great. Thank you.
All right. Next, let me save and close. We will go on to the next one.
9110 brings us to 5
Yes.
districts. And I think it's
Trustee areas, yeah, it
perfectly
mentions.
good as written and
There's no note
really
from
no
you.
change from where we
No,
were,
keep,
except what was necessary.
thank you.
So the next is Board Bylaw 9121, President. So there was a comment from 9100 that just said, let's update corresponding language here based off of the decisions made in 9100. So I'm going to, should we review this one in detail as well, or are we okay with as is?
Well, since we didn't change anything, then it would be okay as is, would it not? Because we're sticking to our old way, so I think it's fine.
So there's something down here about, we can delete part about CSBA workshop or shift it to may instead of shall, and I didn't quite follow. on what
And
that-
could you give me a number, please?
I'm on page 15.
Okay,
I didn't jump ahead here.
9121, I don't have that edit.
No,
Oh,
you
this
don't have
is,
it outlined.
oh, you know, it's interesting. So this is what happens if we're not using track changes. So I'll scan for that now that I've seen the mistake once, but typically when we're doing a workshop, we'll ask everyone to flip on track changes so that the changes are highlighted. This one just has a note and it looks
Okay.
like the text of the policy. So I'll actually open this one up. Okay, so the note down here says we can delete part below about CSBA workshop or shift it to may instead of shall. And then the actual policy language is, I'm gonna go back to our samples because that gets a little confusing because it looks like text from, anyway. So this section here is the reference. The president shall participate in the CSBA board president's workshop and other professional development opportunities to enhance his or her leadership skills. This note is saying delete or shift to may instead of shall. So this is the section we're considering.
13.
It would be, oh, so you guys have also added a bunch of language here, probably from your old policy.
Yeah.
So again, was not highlighted. So I think the best way to look at it is our number stops at 5. So we might want to confirm that 1 through 5 are the same as the CSBA recommendation. And if they're not, you guys are saying you want to add in your old district language here. So currently CSBA has recommended the board president shall perform other duties in accordance with law and board policy, including but not limited to signing all instruments, acts, orders, and resolutions necessary to comply with legal requirements and carry out the will of the board.
Well, I just think some of these numbers aren't accurate, you guys. Yeah, where share informational mail with other board members. I think that is, I don't like that. I think it should come from the district office, not from the president.
And I will point out, those are unique district items that you guys
That
are
really
adding,
stuck
you're
in.
adding back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that. And the board does not do seating assignments. I mean, you guys kind of always set up where it's going to be. So some of these that got added, I think are a little superfluous, if you ask me.
They're in our existing bylaws right now.
Well, but it's a good chance to get them gone. Assign trustees to graduation ceremonies. That may be there from the president in the past. I think it shouldn't be there.
So would you guys like to review what CSBA has recommended and then flip over to what you guys are adding and determine
Please,
which of the
let's
lists
do
we'd
it.
like to keep?
Okay.
So CSBA starts with signing all instruments, acts, orders, and resolutions necessary to comply with legal requirements and carry out the will of the board.
Keep.
Working with the superintendent or designee to ensure that board members have necessary material and information.
Yes,
Subject to board approval, appointing and dissolving all committees.
yes,
In conjunction with the superintendent or designee, representing the district as the board's spokesperson in communication with the media.
yes.
Number 5, leading the board's advocacy efforts to build support within the local community and at the state and national levels.
Okay.
So that's where CSBA's recommendations end. Let's go over to your additional items. We can start with 1, which is the same, signing all instruments, acts, and orders. That's the same as our number 1.
Well, are we the same all the way until number 6?
Dissolving all committees.
No, it's not.
Let's see. Yep, 1, 2, 3 are the same. In conjunction, yes. Number 5, leading the board advocacy efforts to build support, yes. Number 6 is where it probably, and I don't know if these are unique things or maybe, so this is what tends to happen in workshops is you might have used old CSBA language. We may have struck this from our policies. And because the policies are old, they still contain the language. I can usually do that work offline. I wouldn't use our time to do that today, but if you all want to just have the conversation about whether 6 through 13 are still applicable, that might be easier than researching whether or not this is old language that we've since deleted.
Let's do it real quick if you don't mind.
Yep. So number 6 would be confer with the superintendent or designee on crucial matters which may occur between board meetings.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, that might happen under some
Yeah,
circumstance.
my concern about it though is that it's limiting too. It's like, I think Dr. Forrest has been great over the years in when we've had crucial matters, and I know that's open to interpretation, but crucial matters looping in the entire board to let everybody know what's happening. You know, especially when it's, related to, some severe behavioral occurrence or expulsion or something like that. I don't want 6 to all of a sudden be limiting and for the other board members to not know what. is
And that's,
happening with that.
I hear what you're saying. I don't read it like that. I just read that you might end up talking to the superintendent about stuff. It would not in any way in my mind be, oh, it's just the 2 people and the rest of the board would not be privy. I mean, it should go to everybody, but it doesn't have to say that it happens for it to happen, correct?
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you feel more comfortable, I don't mind striking that. It might end up, there's a conversation, but it could end up, there's a conversation with any given board member that drops by and
Yeah.
talks to Dr. Porras you're right, everybody on the board needs that information. So strike 6.
I'd like to see 6 go.
What do you think, Frank?
Okay. Yeah.
Strike.
I'm indifferent, actually. Go ahead.
7, I would like to strike that too, because again, I think it needs to come from the district. I am not comfortable, even as president, being the one that discerns what should go out and how. I don't like that. So I'd like to strike 7.
They're losing 7.
Mr. Paff? Okay, lose 7, please. 8. Seating assignments. Can I just say lose, please?
Well, who's gonna decide where everybody?
I think
sits?
the big power is back there with Mandy and I always defer. Okay. Graduation, strike 9, please. 10,
9's funny. Don't you feel like somewhere in the past there was somebody got mad?
somebody got mad. There's some history to this for sure. Act as a spokesperson for trustees at special ceremonies. I mean, I think that happens
I
sometimes.
would keep that.
Yeah, keep that. That should be now then number 6, I think. Number 11, assign trustees to special visitations. I don't like that.
I don't even
I
know
mean,
what
that we would
means.
decide as a group, this is how we want to go, right? Strike 11. Ex officio,
Pretty broad.
strike.
No, I think you keep that.
You keep it? I'd like to know when there's been a committee in 5 years. This is just in case.
Just in case.
All right. Doesn't mean you can't, doesn't mean you must. Right?
Well, this sounds like you must. You
No, no.
are,
Ex officio says that at any point on a committee, you are a member if you choose to show up.
okay. So is that 7 now? Okay, appoint a parliamentarian. I think that can go back to the 50s and leave us alone. Okay,
There's a strike in here that was in our existing policy that said represent the district as governance spokesperson in conjunction with the superintendent.
So I
Where
have,
was
in
that?
conjunction with the superintendent or designee representing the district as the board spokesperson in communication.
I'm
with
sorry, that's
media.
been moved up. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
that's there.
That's
So
okay.
at the very bottom, we shifted to May. When the president resigns or is absent, the clerk may perform. Is that what was
So
suggested?
I'm going to go back to our sample because we
Uh-oh.
can't see clearly kind of what's been edited, but so after the list, we have the paragraph, the president shall participate in CSBA's board president workshop. You all want to keep that, but shift it to May or just strike it all together. So you can see it in my version up
That's-
here.
That's the vice president. We changed clerk to vice president.
Yeah.
Shall perform. I think that's shall. It's
So
not me.
we're looking at two different versions. So I went back to our samples because the edits are not showing up on the version that we, that you all prepared. So on the sample, the way that the sample reads is after number 5, it just says the president shall participate in the workshop and other professional development opportunities to enhance their leadership skills. Do we want that paragraph? The note indicates that you might want to either delete it altogether or shift it to May.
Got it. Okay.
I'd say shift to May.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that back.
Okay.
I'm gonna delete that sentence, which is just communication to us.
Okay,
And then the next section, oh, sorry, May.
There is one small change on that note, please. At the end, it says such as Brown Act Workshop, Annual Education Conference and Trade Show, and Masters in Governance Program. And in fact, it should be or Masters in Governance Program.
So I think that's old language that was added back. So are we okay with going with the new recommended language, which just applies to other professional? It doesn't
Yes.
specify. It just says other
You
professional.
are correct.
Okay.
yes.
So I'm going to keep the new language, and the last paragraph is when the, let's see, You all chose option 2, which might have been what you selected previously. You have 2 options. It says option 1 is when the president resigns or is absent, the clerk shall, or vice president in your case, shall perform the president's duties. When both the president and VP are absent, the board shall choose a president pro tempore to perform the president's duties. Option 1. You all went with, I think, let's see. When the president resigns or is absent, the vice, this is just for language. So we're going with vice president.
Yes, please.
Oh, yes.
All right, so I'm going to just for the sake of, again, record keeping, want to make sure that we're showing that this is. Okay. Okay, so it just shows as an edit. That's just me trying to capture every
that's
single change that
perfect.
you guys have made.
You're quick.
Okay, so that is everything. Are we okay with keep, see edits as the note? at the
Yes,
top?
please.
And I'm gonna put, this was at the PGUSD 823. Okay, going to save and close. The next one would be 9122, secretary. Let's see if there were any edits made to your draft.
See any.
Okay. I don't see any edits, but now I realize I have to be a little more careful because there's not always track changes turned on these. So I don't see anything. This looks like our standard.
Yes.
However, there are a couple additional ones. So it looks like our sample only has a short paragraph and then items 1 through 6. Yours has a short paragraph and items 1 through 13. So shall we read through the CSBA recommendations and then shift to your list? Does that work?
Yes. Let's do it.
Okay, so the CSBA recommended language. The governing board shall appoint the superintendent to serve as secretary to the board. The secretary to the board shall be responsible for maintaining an accurate and complete record of all board proceedings and shall, number 1, prepare, distribute, and maintain the board agenda. Number 2, record, distribute, and maintain the board minutes. Number 3, maintain board records and documents. Number 4, conduct official correspondence for the board.
That's not what ours says.
Okay,
Prepare, issue, and serve all orders of the board.
okay, so that's an addition from your old policy. Which one was that? Do you had the first 3 though?
Yes.
Okay, so number 4 is conduct official correspondence for the board anywhere there, or that language was modified?
That's down in number 10 in the one sitting in this PDF.
Okay, so that's number 10 on yours. As directed by the board, sign and execute official papers.
11.
Number 6, perform other duties as assigned. So that's the recommendation. So let's flip over to what you all have decided
Okay.
or recommended from the previous workshop. Prepare, distribute, and maintain agenda. Record, distribute, and maintain minutes. Maintain board records and documents. Prepare, issue, and serve all orders of the board.
I'd like to know what that means. What are orders of the board? I've never even heard of it.
Really, it's essentially policy, or if the board is directing us to move forward someplace, to do some action at a board meeting. Typically, it's action, something that came about.
And, okay, and the other ones that are down there, perform all other duties as required by the board, that would not be sufficient? It's 2 different things, you think?
I think just from looking at this list right now, I think the CSBA recommended covers a lot of these.
Yes, that's, I think we're trying to make sure we don't lose past,
Right.
past numbers, but it's redundant, some of this.
And without speaking out of turn, I would just say that
Please.
sometimes there's language that we've revised and refined. So if you've been using CSBA policies for a while, it's, I would say many times, this is old language that we've taken out of the policy for different reasons. Either it's reductive, or redundant, or out of date, not best practice, or unclear. And so in many cases, we refine if we have legal updates, and this might be a case where we've refined the language.
Yes. I feel like it's too much, you guys. I think we should lose this stuff.
I think we can really trim it down.
Yeah, let's trim it down. So prepare, issue, and serve all orders of the board. That's number 4. That's the first one that we kind of have extra.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm just going to delete it for now, and then we'll come back and just check and say we're okay with the deletion. So I'm just striking this,
Okay,
and then you guys can let me know if everyone agrees.
okay,
The next one would be prepare for each board member a written notice of all regular, adjourned, and special board meetings together with the agenda and appropriate material for the meeting.
It's redundant with number 1.
redundant, yeah. Strike,
Number 6 on your policy, send written notice of all board meetings to news media within the district and to organizations that have requested such notice in writing.
feel like that's already been said as well.
Ralph, is there we have laws based on providing meeting notices?
There's a whole separate.
Yeah, it's a whole separate section of public noticing for board.
Okay, do we have to reference it here or no?
So the CFs, they don't get modified. They follow every single policy. So if there's anything, and they're very broad, so it would be captured at the bottom. I think I showed you guys on this one. Sorry, let me pull it back up. Oh, so many documents open. Basically, it's at the bottom. So here you can see the cross references. Agenda meeting materials, 9322 is cited, 9324 minutes and recordings. The others don't cover meetings or agendas, but those are the 2 cross references we have.
Okay, so Tazita, you're saying these things that are mentioned here are taken care of elsewhere?
So if you're talking about or do we cross reference in this document to other documents? That's not the question.
No.
Question is, do we need it here because it has to be here or else it isn't done somewhere else? And from what I heard from Dr. Porras, I think from you earlier, is in fact it is somewhere else as well. So
Correct.
we have to have a media announcement, right?
Right.
By law.
Mhm. Correct.
Yes,
But we don't need it as part of the secretary duties explicitly.
Correct.
There's a lot of it Brown Act in terms of noticing, public meeting noticing.
So yeah, I'm good with losing that. Thanks.
Okay. Post and distribute notices and agendas as required by law or as directed by the board.
that's elsewhere as well. So strike,
And that's kind of what I meant about the CFs. So agenda and meeting materials, 9322 is, that's where the reference is. Like it's telling you, you can find more information in 9322. So we'll look at that one as well. So, prepare the unadopted minutes of each board meeting and forward those to each board member prior to each regular meeting.
that's elsewhere. Strike,
Sign the minutes of the board meetings following their approval.
elsewhere. Strike,
Conduct official correspondence of the board.
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Since our secretary is the superintendent.
what do you think about this one, Dr. Porras?
Well,
Wouldn't that be under other duties?
yeah, I
Would that
mean,
be
you
there
could,
maybe?
put it under duties. I mean, most of the correspondence that I'm conducting is going to be based on the meetings and the actions that take place. So I think if this might be in reference to, well, it could be in reference to suspect to communications as well, if you're corresponding with a member of the public on behalf of the board. But though typically, I'm just relaying messages that currently the board president, whatever board president sent. So, I mean, it's already happening as part of the duties in terms
Yeah.
of.
I'd say strike again. We just don't need to be so bulky. Does that feel okay? Okay, strike, please. And I feel 11's the same thing, yeah? You wanna read that?
So that is one of our recommendations.
Oh, well, there it is. Well, it's in there already. So yeah.
That's in our sample. So conduct official correspondence for the board is a duty that we have. It doesn't mean you have to keep it, but it is a duty that we've outlined in our samples. So now we're getting to, things have just moved around a little bit.
Okay.
So we have 6 items that we've recommended. You guys had a list of 13. So there were some overlap between what we recommended and what you all had. Conduct official correspondence does fall in that category. Like we recommend it.
Okay,
So are we okay with
we'll
keeping?
keep CSBA.
Let's see. You guys don't have this next one, as directed by the board, sign and execute official papers. It's just rewritten. It's just written.
Sign and execute. We have papers and contracts. that have been
Yeah, so you all
authorized.
have signed and execute official papers and contracts as authorized by the board. We have as directed by the board, sign and execute official papers. It's
Yeah.
subtle, but a change. Would you prefer our language or yours?
Yours. I'm hoping you guys are in agreement. Yeah, updated.
Okay. Okay, assist the board president in development of board meeting agendas. We do not, we have prepare, distribute, and maintain the board agenda. And that's you already kept that in number 1, so.
Yes. So strike.
Yeah. Perform all duties as required by the board. Instead, we have perform other duties as assigned by the board. I think I'm biased, so I like CSBA language, but it's up to you.
As
guys.
assigned sounds better than required, don't you think?
That 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but I like, I like it, perform all other duties. It's either assigned or required.
Okay,
I kind of like assigned better.
I like assigned. Required just sounds harsh.
Okay. All right, so I'm adding, we will fix the numbering. So in all, we're left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks. Would you guys like me to reread them? Okay, so that's that for that one. Oh,
Okay, and I just want to do a time check.
So,
We're about an hour and a half into the 3-hour meeting, and are we kind of tracking pretty well here? I mean, we've had a couple that have required more.
so I can go in and kind of do a little assessment of how far we have to go.
Don't worry, we'll just keep moving
Okay.
smartly.
Okay, so I'm going to put keep, see edits. And per the PGUSD board, 823. All right. Okay, so the next item, board bylaw 9123, clerk,
Now call vice president.
now known as vice president.
I suggest we keep these exactly as they are. They're no different than what we had. And the only change is item 4, serving as presiding officer in the absence of the president, period.
All right, hold
Yeah.
on just a second. I want to make sure that that is the edit that's on there currently.
No?
Nope.
that's-
Okay.
We're changing
since
some.
We're not going to have a president, vice president, and clerk.
Got it. So there are no, so when you say edit, I'm thinking it's something I need to capture. You're just saying from your old policies.
Well, and just get rid of and vice president,
Okay, give me one
because vice
second.
president is not serving when the vice president's not there.
Right,
Number 4. In the absence of the president, period.
all right, so number 4, the edit, please. It says you would like me to change it
Stop
to,
after president, get rid of and vice president. Perfect.
and we are going to keep. All right,
Excellent.
next is 9124,
Attorney. Mhm.
attorney. Any edits there?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay. We will keep moving right along.
So keep.
If there's no edits at the top, I've been using that as the default for keep. So
Yes.
I can go back. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep
You're
going.
doing great.
So we have board committees. I don't see any edits.
None here.
Okay. 9140. Board representatives. Okay. $91.50 student board members.
Pardon me, when you say no edits, are we looking at the first draft clean, or are we looking at your CSBA document?
So when I go to no edits, I'm talking about the draft has no notes at the top. However, we've noticed sometimes there's edits that,
Okay.
so I'm not talking about from your old version to this version. It's just, did you guys mark this up at all?
Okay.
And it could also be an opportunity if you have questions or
Okay. Frequently, it says Board of Trustees and CSBA says Governing Board. Now, I'm not sure I care. I'm just,
yeah, so
Is
that's a
that a
global
group?
change.
that's fine.
So,
We're done.
yep. Okay, so 9150.
I apologize. I was-
No worries. Student board members has an edit from Carolyn to discuss with full board at special meeting. Current bylaw is quite different, possibly because it's older. But I can pull up our sample and we can talk through it.
Perfect.
And maybe it'll be helpful to see what your existing policy says on student board members, and the date is a good indicator of why it's different. So yours, 9150.
Written by a electric typewriter, I think ours was.
So I've got to skip forward a bit. It's a little hard to navigate these. Thanks for your patience. 9150. So I'm assuming also the posted ones are the most recent version sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. That's okay. We're going to be on GPP soon. So 9124. Almost there. Okay. So 9150, your old policy, looks like it was adopted in 1993. But, oh, there's a revision. I apologize. That was a previous adoption date. The most recent revision, October 2009. Ours was revised 2021. So you're going to see a lot of new language. In these cases, I often say, let's start with the new language, but you can tell me which way you'd like to do it.
Start with new.
Okay. So I don't think we've got. Yeah, I don't think Carolyn made any notes for us, so we'll just read through the suggested language.
And I think most of these are ed code, if I recall. As I
Yep.
recall, the review on this one, a big chunk of it was just straight out of ed code.
So our policy says paragraph 1 is not, but it just says that in order to enhance communication and collaboration between the governing board and the student body, and to teach students the importance of civic involvement, the board supports the participation of high school students in district governance.
Yep.
Okay. This is ed code here, and the successive paragraphs do all come out of ed code. There is no paragraph without an ed code reference except for down here in roles and responsibilities. So you all can let me know how much of this you want me to read through. There are some also suggested items in student board member training, similar to board president training, that are recommendations, not requirements. Everything else, you're correct, is ed code.
May I?
Pardon?
May I speak?
May you speak?
Yes, I know. I'm asking permission.
Please,
If
always.
We have a petition section here. We already have a board member. It is certainly not required if we have an existing board member to have this thing. I would strike those 3 paragraphs.
Starting with,
High school students may submit a petition to
yeah,
the board.
it's noted here, delete.
Is it?
Yeah, right here.
This is my notes.
Oh, that's your notes. So you're in total agreement.
So I'll just read the note that we have to give us some
Yeah.
background context. If petitioned by the district's high school, and they're right, like you don't need this since you already have a board member, but the board is required to include at least one student at its discretion may include. Districts that have already established it should delete the following section. So per everyone's recommendation, am I okay to delete?
Yes, please. Those 3.
Alrighty.
Let me ask Ralph, how did we get to May 1? Do you have any
Sorry,
idea?
I didn't just see
Pardon
mine.
me, term of the student board member shall be 1 calendar year commencing on May 1.
Oh, no.
On July 1, it says here.
So we've
existing
got
policies.
July 1. Your district policy might say something
Our
different with,
district policy said May 1. so-
yeah, so let's go to choosing student board members.
May have had to do with finals and stuff like that.
And I'll just read our note. Ed
Okay.
Code authorizes the board to adjust the term of the board member only when a vacancy occurs. To provide students more students an opportunity to serve on the board, it is recommended any proposal to reduce the term be brought before the board. So I don't think that date comes out of Ed Code. We could look it up. But the note isn't sending me in the direction that this is a requirement, that date is a requirement per
I
Ed
mean,
Code.
yeah, I'm sure not. You don't even know who's going to be in your class at that point. You're still in the previous year. So could we say at the commencing at the
Beginning of the school year.
of the school year? That's wonderful.
I think July 1 may have been selected because for schools, July 1 is the beginning of the new year. June 30th is the end of the school year and July 1 is the beginning of the new year. So I
But
think,
we would never expect these guys to show up until the actual year begins.
no,
correct?
true, unless we have a special meeting and they want to attend. Not that they ever have, but
No.
they could if they wanted to.
Yeah,
Pardon me, our existing one says May 1. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure where May 1 came from.
yeah, this
We're
one
not
says
sure where
July
July
1.
1 comes from either.
Yeah, July 1
Like
makes
July
sense.
1?
July 1 makes sense to
Should
me
be.
only because it aligns with the calendar. May 1, I have no idea. Only thing I can think of was May is that it's the beginning of final season and it may be that they wanted to
I
end
think
it
that-
so that.
Yeah, lose that, but I don't know why we don't say commencing at the start of the school year. I mean, they'd always be invited to be here, but they're not even, like Ray was in the
No.
Azores, so. I just say.
It's actually Ed Code. Ed Code 35120. Pardon me. 35012.
Oh, okay. never
Paragraph
mind.
7, any pupil selected, yada, yada. The term of the pupil shall be 1 year commencing on July 1 of each year.
Okay,
Well,
sorry.
July
Maybe
1
maybe
it is.
adjusted only in cases a vacancy occurs.
Okay,
So we will
sorry.
leave it.
So, okay, now we know why it's July 1 in the new one.
All right. Any other edits, questions?
There is one item, and I'm sorry, I have to get back to my other screens. We got about 8 minutes and then I lose power and I'm going home.
okay, come on, keep coming.
Ed Code talks about preferential voting.
Where are you, please?
Pardon me, I have to get.
I gotcha.
I did actually.
Yes,
on
you just
22.
scrolled past
It's right under
Go back up.
22. That student board members shall be allowed to cast preferential votes on all matters except those subject to closed session discussions.
Thank you. As long as it's there. Thank you very much.
Is there? Okay, so we're set. Keep.
Okay, keep. So I'm going to remove Carolyn's note that you're going to discuss it because we've discussed it.
That's right.
And
There's a section, if I may, I'm sorry, did I read that it said the student has a right to attend closed session?
No, God, attend
No,
closed session?
and-
Did I read that wrong? Or I just thought I saw it before you scrolled to the top. Right there.
so the student board member shall have the right to attend all board meetings
Except-
Except
closed.
I
closed.
thought you went by it really fast and I thought, wait a minute, I want to
Alright.
make sure. I read that right.
Wait a
That's
darn
okay.
minute.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
All right, so I'm going to get rid of that note. Keep. Are there edits to this one? We did delete something, and we're okay with the student board member trainings section, which is completely optional.
Student board training.
It just says may. They're both mays.
Yes, we
Okay.
are fine with that. If they
Okay.
wish to go to a conference at our expense, that's a rational thing to do.
Okay,
All right. Close. The next one is
Eric, did you hit it?
9,200. Limits of board member authority.
Oh, good, that's good. I see no notes.
Just have to go back to the menu. Any comments?
Keep and move.
I've lost my place here. All right. No discussion. I'm gonna keep going. 9220.
Yeah.
Governing board elections.
You have no say over Ed Code 35107. A district employee elected to the board shall resign his employment before being sworn in or automatically terminated.
All right. Are you asking if you can modify which section?
We're under 9220, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, the second paragraph down.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I ask is, you know, in a place like Pacific Grove, there are a number of things where you are a district employee because, for example, you teach 2 hours of soccer on a Wednesday night. And it never really made any sense to me to have to give that up because you're on the school board. because you're so
I had to quit the second you appointed me,
Yeah, you did.
and I had a really good kickball thing going on.
It's
It
a-
was special.
It's just.
It's law, right?
It's Ed
Yeah,
Code
we're done.
35107
Thank you very
pursuant to
much.
the Ed
Moving
Code.
on.
Yeah.
Up at the first paragraph,
Mhm.
Board of Trustees, there's a space. You see what I mean? Before the comma, just at the tippy.
Yes. Which is making me think maybe there's an edit here. I'm gonna look at ours to see if,
Okay, don't worry.
so yours says any person is, excuse me, eligible to be a member of the Board of Trustees
I just.
without further qualifications.
Yeah.
We don't have that same edit, so it could have just been a typo. Somebody started typing.
Perfect. Okay, so we
Yeah.
want to keep this and go?
Yes.
Good. We're moving. Don't worry, we're going to be out of here before you run out of steam on that computer.
All right.
Ralph just went to get me a plug-in, so I'm in trouble.
Just don't be badgered.
We don't need the
Not your
consolidation of elections paragraphs.
9222, are we talking about?
220.
9220, we just did that.
Consolidation of elections simply because we're already consolidated.
Okay, let me open it back up.
I don't know where he is.
All right, so we are now in section 2 under consolidation of elections. CSBA sample. I mean, do you all want the background info or are we okay with striking?
Strike.
I'm happy to give you the 30 seconds somewhere.
I'm gonna
All right,
ask
for
a
my own
question
purview, I
after
just
that.
like to.
Yes,
check
you
in
may.
here.
Well, I'm gonna regret asking this probably.
Please be
but under
careful. We're
consolidate-
moving at a nice clip, sir.
But I mean, is under consolidation of elections, if for some reason the elections that we're presently consolidated with shift, having that in there allows us to shift too, does it not? I know it's a dumb question,
Yeah,
John,
what
but
he's
it's like, I don't see a need to strike it either. It gives us,
What-
allows us to
This,
be.
this whole
nimble.
paragraph should go away on November 8th, 2022. By default, we
Are
are
you-
required by law to be on an even year after 2022.
Okay, all right.
So
John knows more than I do. Lose it.
John knows more than all of us, but thank you. Strike.
I mean, I could be wrong, Ralph, but I think.
Oh,
it
he-
was-
he-
I think-
he
I think we
humbly
had to do
says
it by
that at the end.
2022.
I
but-
could be off base on this, but I've never been wrong that I can remember.
I
This-
don't,
CSBA says it's optional. So let's see.
it doesn't say you have to or don't have to. What I would like to do for my own just confidence is to check our mandate list to see if there's any requirement that you have policy language anywhere. This isn't a mandate, but I'd like to just be sure.
You do
So
that? We
what I'll
vote
put
yes.
is a note that says strike if there is no otherwise no requirement that you have policy language on the topic.
Perfect.
I do now want to know for sure if I was right and John was wrong.
I can definitely.
Just let it go. Let it go. Time is of the essence. Hour
um,
and 10 minutes. We're moving.
I'll just put my initials. Otherwise, we are deleting delete. And the notice keeps the edits.
Okay, if you keep going down in there and you look at CSBA note, the remainder of this section, and now I'm on page 28 of yours and 25 of ours, says to ensure ongoing compliance with CBRA, et cetera. But you actually have a note that says this is true only if you're using option 2 or 3, which is at large elections, and we are not. Shall we lose that?
So elections, process and procedures, let's go to you've chosen
Chosen?
trust, well, there's options here. So
It's
let's
not
check.
that we've chosen. We are by district.
Okay, so the option that's been selected would
Okay.
be trustee areas, right? So under elections, process and procedures, you have the district is divided into trustee areas. And that ends with Department of Finance. So it's this is the option. And so your question is, since you have option 1, the only remaining so that paragraph to ensure ending with census
Yep.
would go.
Would go. So let's take that out.
All
It's in
right,
this
to
first draft clean.
ensure
And the one after that
Says,
is also if the board determines that a change is necessary. We determined that 2 years ago and made the change. So I believe that last paragraph is struck as well.
so forgive me, I'm always a fan of keeping things for if then situations. I can't imagine a situation where anything could be reversed, but is there consensus that we are okay with just taking that out, even though that is the established practice, because we can't foresee that situation. There's no situation where that would occur again. Okay. We will take that out.
What do you think? I can conceive of no situation where we can undo that.
Right, I just like to, so what I say is, we're not the only board this district will ever have. This is not the end, like the end of time, so I'll strike it. I think this is the easier thing, if that's the consensus.
More realistically, if we have to undo it, I think that a whole bunch of other things have to change first. And CBRA is particularly broad in stick and not so much in carrot. So
Got it. So we are striking that.
Perfect.
Okay. The remaining sections don't pertain to either option 1 or 2 regarding how your elections process procedures. So nothing else is, there's all candidates, including current board members, shall abide by state, federal, county requirements regarding campaign donations, fundings, and expenditures. This is not out of ed code, but my recommendation would be to keep it. Is there any other?
Yes.
We
that's
haven't
good.
gone through every optional sentence, but while I have this open, Is there anything else in here? Statement of qualifications is also, there's some optional language in there. Let's see. You can limit it to a number of words. You all chose 200. Is everyone okay with? Okay. More options to defray the cost. The district shall pay for the cost of printing. The district shall assume no part in the cost of printing.
Shall pay. We have kept shall for a while, and I think that that is a
Perfect. Ties, I guess what you guys have regarding tie votes is before each election, the board shall decide. There are a couple different options here. You don't have to wait until right before the election. You could determine ahead of time, whenever a tie makes it impossible, the board shall schedule a runoff, or the board shall notify the candidate and determine the winner by lot. So basically, option 3 just defers you to having to make a decision right before. Then it's up to you all, whichever direction you want to take. But if you want to just table that until you actually have the circumstance in front of you, that's the option you currently have.
Yes, table it.
Alrighty, so that's all the optional language in that one. I already had a note that said keep see edits. The only thing that we're following up on is there's no requirement to maintain that one paragraph.
Excellent.
All right. Save and close. So 9222 resignation. Any?
No edits,
Okay.
so keep.
9223. Loading,
No
filling
edits.
vacancies.
No edits there. I
Nine-
looked and we have about another 25, so we're about halfway through. So hopefully not a lot of edits. We'll just keep going. We're doing great.
And I will also say you'll have another opportunity to review all of these all together when they come back.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. So
oath or affirmation, 9224.
why did I hit that? It came up.
There were no previous notes left by anyone.
Keep.
Okay. 9230 orientation.
Now, this is one of those things that kind of had come up previously that, and I think we've instituted that and been doing real well with that, Dr. Porras.
Any additional comments, questions?
Nope.
All right, 9240. Board training. I don't see any previously left comments.
Nope.
9250.
Here comes some comments.
Remuneration, reimbursement, and other benefits. So let's see. Your draft. Plenty of comments. So it looks like there was a question from Carolyn about the health benefits. But would you guys like to review all the options?
What does that mean? That we get health benefits if we're on the board?
You have options for it.
Okay,
You sign up for the district benefits.
if I want,
Yeah.
yeah.
right.
Thank God I'm so old. I don't have to worry about such things.
So
close-
it
so
looks
close
like
to death.
Option 1 was selected for compensation. Each member of the governing board may receive the maximum monthly compensation as provided for in Ed Code. So our standard policy says just that. The note here says there's an additional add for a district with 1,000 to 10,000 students. The maximum monthly compensation is $240 per month.
Okay, so I believe that that is no longer correct.
Is it more?
It is more. It's $277.63
And
or
I-
some ridiculous thing.
I
And
think
that's why
that's-
option one
Just says,
says maximum monthly compensation is provided by Ed Code 35120.
exactly.
It's some number beyond that. Song, you maybe even know, I don't know. Have you looked at it recently? Yeah, I wouldn't either. I just looked at it once a while ago.
So would we like to keep the additional edit recommended? Given that what we try to create are policies that are perennial with things that could change or are constantly changing, we don't put that. So either you could come up with a number for yourselves, which is the second option. Each member of the governing board may receive monthly compensation in the amount of blank, because you don't have to provide the maximum, or you could just say it will be the maximum amount as provided by law. Or you could choose something else, but
Well, I would say, this number is actually from 2009. And I argued at that point in time from the audience that you guys should change it to maximum is allowed by law, so we never have to do this again. It has been unchanged since then. I would suggest that instead of,
How soon does it kick in? I've got some plans.
it doesn't kick in arrears, and it's like $23 more, but so.
Buy some
Well, I
candy.
like the.
Oh, Song has something.
Well, I'm sorry,
No,
I
no,
just
please,
searched,
Dawn.
it says, ed code says 1090, it says maximum is per month $600. Attends all school board of education who actually attends all meetings. Held may receive this compensation for his or her services, a sum not to exceed $600 per month.
Wow.
Where are you reading?
Seeing just to California code, education code 1090.
so the code we cite to is 35120.
And that still says 240 actually. here, so.
Does it say 240?
35120.
Okay, let me check.
There's 23 bucks down the drain.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You could also just set the number, but again, the easier, I guess, or maybe less
Hassle.
complicated
Yeah.
would be to say the maximum as is specified in ed code.
I think you're absolutely right about that, John. Just say that. And it's 240 it's showing right now.
Possibly.
But we wouldn't put a number
Don't put it,
because
yeah.
the number wouldn't be tied to the maximum amount. That would just be a number you all set, right? So if it caps at $300, you could set it at $200 if that's what you decided as a board, and that would be option 2. If you decided to just receive maximum possible, you could just leave option 1 and just say whatever the maximum is by law, that's
Well,
what it showed.
We've heard here 277 and we hear 600. I don't want to throw in here 600.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
But
we
it-
don't want that. So can't we find out right now what it is?
Yeah, let's
Song's
go ahead.
looking hard.
I think though, if we simply put into the maximum allowed, you're covered and then you don't
Okay.
have to worry about it. On an annual basis, governing board may increase compensation beyond the limits delineated in an amount not to exceed 5% of the present monthly rate. This was written in 2019, so that's why it's some number that's actually beyond that now.
Okay,
This still comes back to us one more time for approval too.
It does.
right? So
There
if-
you go.
if-
Let's
if
do it.
Song
And
can't get the
you all
number-
can't see this, it's very teeny tiny, but these are the allocations. So 35120 per Leginfo today. And I think she said you guys, your ABA is
yeah, I saw 240 down there
1,000 to 10,000.
per month.
So I'm not sure where that number came from, but if you're, yeah, so here the comment is just between 1,000 and 10,000, it's 240. I don't know if you're pulling from another ed code or if there's been updated.
So if you go down a few paragraphs in this mess, under E, it says on an annual basis, the governing board may increase compensation beyond the limits delineated in this section not to exceed 5% at a present monthly rate of whatever it was there. And this has a origination date of a couple years ago, 2020. So
Okay, as,
I'm just going to go, I would suggest that we just say upper limits as provided by ed code.
that's right. And then we're going to see it again. And if it's outrageous, then we make
Not gonna be
adjustments then.
outrageous. It's-
Okay.
Again, it's
Can we
at
do
most
that?
$20 and it's been 240 since 2009. So
Yeah.
Then you get into the question of, shall we provide insurance beyond what we already do? And what our current policy says is board members and their dependents may at their own expense participate in the health and welfare benefits program provided for district employees, which I think says that if you have no other insurance and wish to pay $21,000 a year, the board, the district will provide that, and that is perfectly rational to me. We're not paying for it, but you can use the backdrop of the district.
Gotcha.
If I may, Madam President.
Yes, please.
The ed code, I think, refers to all meetings. I think there's a practice in our district that if you don't attend all meetings and you don't get the full compensation, you receive half the compensation. If you make, for example, if you only attend 1 out of 2. I don't know if that's referenced in this policy.
Yes.
So if, so I just want to know if the board wants to continue that, we just need to make sure it's in whatever the current iteration of the policy is.
It says any member who does not attend all board meetings during the month is eligible to receive only a percentage of the monthly compensation equal to percentage of meetings. So it's there.
What if we have an extra meeting like on a Tuesday night? Do we get another bump?
No.
Yeah, I don't
And
think so.
and the one in July actually cost the district 24, whatever it is, right? Five times.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have normally paid, and in theory, we're supposed to get.
Is that so?
Yep.
I feel like I saw it more. Okay, well, let's
So-
go where we want. I feel like we're losing, where's the chocolate is what I wanted to know.
We
Okay.
do
Ouch,
normally
sorry.
have caffeine and sugar when we have
We
workshops.
should be. I can feel the
Um,
energy in the room. I want to get pillows and blankets and turn the lights on low.
So I did want to go through the notes that have been left for us so far, and maybe we
Okay.
can start there. So option 1 is what was selected for compensation with an additional sentence reading for a district with 1,000 to 10,000 students, the maximum monthly compensation is $24 or $240 per month. Do you all agree to strike the additional
Strike that.
sentence?
I understand perfectly why it was there, but in fact, it's stated. Yeah, it's not accurate,
Sorry, I'm not in.
only
edit mode.
because something else happened.
All right, so rejecting that change, but you are selecting option 1, which is just this section, deleting the remaining option. Well, they've already been deleted, so that's fine. There's an additional sentence here. Attendance at meeting is defined as being present for the complete meeting for a majority of the time. Are you okay with that add? Our
That's always
policy-
been in place.
Not really.
No, I don't think we need that.
I don't think we need it, no.
Yeah, strike.
And like you pointed out to us, some of these extra meetings and
Yeah.
participating in the board goes well beyond being at a meeting. And there are
Yeah.
people chiming in virtually and all that, so I don't
Sure.
think we need to
I don't want to get too,
define it so
I
narrowly.
totally agree.
Perfect. So I'm going to also reject that change. The next paragraph reads, any member who does not attend all board meetings. That was the note about eligibility for compensation. There's just some small changes here for gender or for pronouns. Are we okay with that change? Just today, we don't care. Okay. Same thing for the next paragraph. Reimbursement of expenses, there's no edits there. Health and welfare benefits. So option 3 has been selected and there's a question mark that says the district shall pay blank as a reimbursement for costs of approved health plans that have been paid by board members.
Go ahead.
Well, there's a thing that says board members may use district issued credit cards. Well, we can, I guess.
I don't see any, that's not an edit, that's just our sample. Did you all want to talk about that one?
I guess we did for the lunch. Did I ever, but you went and did it, right? Yeah, not me. I just don't know that we need that there. We don't go out and use your credit card, right?
Unnecessary.
Yeah, I'd strike that.
And it's optional. Don't need to have it just in there.
Strike.
Okay. So we will take that out. And health and welfare benefits. So board members may participate, shall be no greater than that received by the district's non-safety employees. And then here's where you would select an option. Just to read through the options. Option 1, the district shall pay the premiums required by the board members electing to participate to the same extent that it pays for district employees. Option 2 would be board members who elect to participate shall pay the full cost of premiums. And option 3 is the district shall pay a certain amount toward the reimbursement of costs, a static amount.
And again, our current 9250 says board members and their dependents may at their own expense participate in health and welfare benefits provided by district
So
employees,
option
which is
2.
option 2.
Yeah. Stick with option 2, please.
All righty, so. Undo that. Sorry for the tediousness of this. I just want to make sure I get the correct language. Okay, are we all set here? Any other edits to health and welfare benefits? I think we need to select yet another option for former board members.
Former board members.
So I'm not sure that there's anyone on this board that would fall into this. Would you all like me to read the note?
Are you guessing our ages?
I don't want to
look
make
about
any
40? I'm just
assumptions
curious,
about
47,
duration.
48, is that what you're getting?
Please don't get me into trouble. I'll just read the note. So pursuant to government code, a district may pay premiums for health and welfare benefits for former board members only if all of its following conditions are satisfied. So this wouldn't apply to anyone on this board. The former board member served in office after January 1st, 1981. The former board member's term began before January 1, 1995, and the former board member served for 12 years or more. If the district did not pay benefits for the former board member before 94, benefits may be provided to former board members only on a self-pay basis. Option 1 is for use by districts that paid health and welfare benefits to former board members before Jan 1, 1994 and choose to continue to do so. Option 2 is for districts that are either ineligible to pay for such benefits because they did not. So do you have former board members that would, have you done this previously? I think is the biggest question.
No.
Yeah, Bill pays up. Yeah. But he paid out of pocket. It's option 2.
So it would be option 2. Okay. All right, so I'm striking option 1.
Do you need me to plug this for you?
In a minute.
And that's it for this one.
Wow, moving forward. That was kind of a tricky one.
So we are going to keep, I'm deleting Carolyn's note because we've discussed it. Keep USD
Blow up.
8.
What was this? It? I hope we can get through this. It's
Okay.
long.
All righty, next one. Oh, sorry about that. This is the exhibit. We won't worry about that. We will make any corresponding document. There are no options in the corresponding documents. It's just an exhibit to provide whatever instruction you've given us in the board bylaw. We would make sure it's accurate for the exhibit. And if there are any questions, we would contact your office. So,
Perfect.
okay. Legal protection, 9260.
60. We're really moving.
Pulling up your draft right now. So it looks like there are no notes from your previous reviewers. Okay. Next one is 9270. Conflict of interest.
No notes? Keep.
Perfect. 90. All right, there's an exhibit for that one as well.
This is where we are.
9310. Board policies.
Wow.
The topic at hand.
We are flying now.
The board policy on board policies.
Okay.
So
Talk about redundant.
so this basically kind of well, let me see if there's any edits if we need to have any discussion.
Access to policies. That's look like
So I don't
51. Bottom of 51, there's some green.
Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. So Carolyn says, edits discussed with board. Do we want to include wording on allowing policies to be translated upon request? The sample CSBA policy does not include any info on suspension of policies. Shall we add? So we can take a look at the policy as is. We want to read through it or?
Doesn't this new format that we've adopted now, this software actually allow
Gamut.
us to
To rescind.
translate?
Oh, so it's not an official legal translation, but it does allow you to use Google Translate, which, again, it just takes a literal translation. So it's accessible for folks to review it, but it wouldn't serve as like a legal translation.
Uh-huh. Okay,
I would imagine that would be at least a good start.
be a good start. And
and
my
then-
concern about opening every policy up, we have 1,100 plus pages of policy right now. And, for somebody to come along and say, you know what? I want 1,100 pages of this, an official legal translation of board policy, which somebody could do. It could be extremely expensive. So I don't know if I want that in policy when we have this tool that gets us close.
Agreed. Okay, does that address the question from the board member? Can I move forward?
Yes, move.
Okay. Suspension of policy, shall we add is the question. So I don't know if your previous policy had anything. Did you all want to go back to that, or are you okay with the CSBA recommendation? In this bylaw, it doesn't detail how to rescind a policy or pull back a policy. So the board member is just saying, do we want to add that language? CSBA does not have a sample language for you to add. If that's something you wanted to, we'd have to wordsmith it here, or you all would have to send.
I'm out. Best I got.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay, where exactly are you right now?
I'm on bylaw 9310.
On page?
Page 50.
I haven't gone into the edit itself. I just looked at her notes at the top, and she's just leaving notes. So the green note at the top of BB 9310.
On that PDF, that 9,000 first draft clean Pacific Grove doc, it's page 50. President Dawson.
I'm a little confused. I'm hoping the chocolate helps. Because
I think this isn't really in the policy. This is just the board member who previously reviewed those is saying she left some comments. So I'm just reviewing her comments first, not really in the policy itself or in the bylaw. And so she's just saying there are some edits and she wants to discuss with the board. 2 questions. Do we want to add wording on allowing policies to be translated upon request? The consensus was no.
No,
The sample CSBA policy does not include any info on suspension of policies. Shall we add?
suspension of policy, what's that mean?
I can only,
I would answer no, since I can't
I
understand.
mean, I would have to guess. But yeah, it's talking about, suspension of policy, getting rid of one. I think if there was a policy that came up, that we as a board wanted to lose, we'd agendize that item
I
and
agree.
talk about it. We'd lose it if we need to lose it.
So the answer is no.
okay, perfect. And then I'm trying to see where her edits
Those
are.
At the very bottom.
Perfect, access to policies. Okay, so she's got, the superintendent or designee shall ensure that all district employees and the public have access to an up-to-date policy or district manual. The policy manual shall be maintained electronically and or by paper. Her edit is a public copy of the manual shall be maintained in the district office and at each school site. These copies shall be maintained electronically and by paper.
Isn't it enough to just have them be available electronically?
I don't know if we still have one hard copy per each site for the board book. Brian, I think it's sufficient that we have electronic. It's up to the board. I mean, we can.
I think in this day and age,
certainly.
electronic.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly produce a written, but it's not going to be, I think, as live in regards to if there are changes in that.
Exactly.
So would you guys like to keep our language and replace end with or would you like to keep the replacement language that the board member is suggesting? So she has a public copy shall be maintained in the district office and at each school site. These copies shall be maintained electrically and by paper. So it's committing you to both an electronic and a paper copy at each school site. Our language just says the policy manual shall be maintained electronically and by paper or by paper.
The latter, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Edit that. Like I'm being timed on my editing. I'm sorry. That beeper is like, gotta go faster.
What is that you, Mandy?
Gotta
Is
go
that you
faster.
causing us problems?
Okay. I'm going to change that to or, and
Yes,
then
please.
we are going to keep this one. And I'm going to remove the comment because we've had the discussion.
That's it.
Okay. Eight, 23. Okay, save and close.
Where was the question on suspension of board policy?
It was just the Carolyn's note at the top. I just removed it.
Got it.
I understand.
Okay.
The reason for a suspension of policy is if you reach 10 o'clock and then you reach 10:30 and you have one more item, do you want to suspend policy and continue on? Our policy says only one item. So if you have a language as to suspension of policies, temporary suspension of policies, it would allow you to do that. I'm not suggesting yay or nay. I'm just suggesting there's a rhyme and reason to do that. Right? It would still require a majority of
We have done it before where we extend a couple times.
we have, I think we have never intentionally extended a couple times, really.
We did it once.
We
We were here
have.
till stinking midnight. We
We-
didn't vote
we-
at 10 o'clock to go to midnight.
We weren't following
We weren't following.
our
policy.
bylaws.
Just got
when we
zany
did
is what
that,
we did.
But in the last couple of years, we've been very strict about it.
That's right. The other night, I think you started packing up and that was a
Pretty much
sign
did, yeah.
that you were ready.
So anyway, so that's, I mean, I'm not trying to interpret for trustee Swanson, but I think that would be why you would say, do we want a suspension of policies at or somewhere in there? If the answer is still
What's
no,
your
it's still
thought?
no.
What's your thought?
My thought is no, actually. My thought
Okay.
is it makes it far more difficult to try and maintain where you want to be. If we mistake and we don't get through, we don't get through. But it actually forces us a little more cognizance on what's going on.
Yes, but
So
we could also say until 11 and be done at 10:25.
we could. It hasn't happened yet, but we could potentially, yeah.
Sometime we've ended earlier than we thought in all these years.
We have.
Okay, so we're happy with this. Can we move on, please? All right. 9320.
One last question on that. Did we make any decision or discussion on translation of policies?
Yes, we did. You were out of the room.
Thank you. Sorry, I've done in over 30 seconds. Bye.
We said Google gets close and that's good enough without that absolute thing. Perfect.
Meetings and notice.
Okay. Can you read the thing for us, please? Oh, no worries.
Carolyn says, not going past it. I'll let time by the board. Extend more than once. Also, our board bylaw states we should list on agenda. There's a couple of different things in there. I think we should break them.
Okay.
First one is the time for board, so her edit says she struck our language. The board shall schedule regular meetings each month. Adopted by the board at its annual.
Yes,
I don't see any other edit about, but
didn't we just do that in the last one, right? We said that we can extend it once. That's what we just voted.
make any edits to the language.
So the language, am I not? At 10 o'clock, we vote once, we vote as a board to extend, and at that point, we're done. Correct? So I think we just did that.
So the board policy on board policies is just blanket language. It's not gonna give you any specific language to modify to say.
So
anything
put it
about
here.
her- Yeah, so if you wanted to make a note about extension.
Okay, then
um,
this is a good spot then.
So,
We like, what Carolyn says, I think is great.
okay,
We can only do it once. That's what was, so that first sentence is good. I think you're right.
Did that adjournment have language about it can go later?
it just says a board may adjourn, continue any regular. Present
Okay.
the secretary.
That's adjournment of a meeting before the agenda is done.
We can extend it and only once.
So for this, I'll just need the exact language, so if you're okay with me. So, because I can't write it, so. I'll
Perfect.
just say related to late night meetings.
It is a phrase.
So how would you like me to modify it?
The regular adjournment is at 10 o'clock. The board may by majority.
Can you pull up a copy? We have the language apparently on the actual agenda. So let me pull up an agenda here real quick.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Board of Education welcomes you to this meeting, which are regularly scheduled for Thursdays. Regular board meetings shall be adjourned by 10 o'clock PM unless extended to a specific time determined by a majority of the board. This meeting may be extended no more than once and may be adjourned to a later date. So that's our language regarding that.
Somebody just want to share that, or I can type it out, I would just need to do. Okay.
Thank you, Mandy. Yes.
Okay, so I'm taking, so I'll just say at the top of adjourned continued meetings, insert language from district
Yes.
that Mandy's gonna send.
Perfect.
That's just from the agenda.
And you want it verbatim, the way you're going to send it?
Well, it's up to the board. but
Yes. It says one time only. Yes, Mandy? By majority, one time only. Okay, yeah, that way, please.
Perfect. Okay, and it's, I mean, we're not voting on it, so I don't have to have it here, but just everyone's okay with me inserting that language. When it comes back to you, you'll see it
We're
verbatim as the agenda.
more than okay.
Okay, all right. And then her other comment was about listing on agenda notices that special or bylaw states we should list on an agenda. So maybe this isn't so much for this policy or for this bylaw, but she's saying that the bylaw says that you should list on the agenda that anyone who needs a special accommodation should contact the superintendent. And that your agenda now should list location for which public inspection of agenda documents can be reviewed. So it's really a note to you all in the agenda, not for the bylaw.
Don't be sorry. Perfect.
Okay. Let's see. So let's see. And again, I don't know that,
Well, I think the interpretation of what that says is if you're going to have a special meeting, it would be unusual for you to go and say, oh, there's a special meeting, let me go check the bulletin board at Forest Grove, right? So if we have a special meeting, we actually post it on our website that we say where it can be read. Not necessarily for every meeting, but for special meetings in particular. Which is what we do now, which is what it's
Yes.
saying. So that's saying, this is
It's
what we do.
already
Do we want to
done,
keep
so I
this on
wouldn't-
here?
And it's not, as she's mentioning, it's not policy. It's already being done.
yeah, this is a note to how you produce your agenda. So I don't know that there needs to be any edit here. It's just saying, hey, we should be doing this is how I am
We are doing
interpreting
this.
it, right?
We are doing it.
So are you all okay with me striking this note? Because really, we only want edits to, or notes to us.
Please.
This is a note to you all. Okay. So I'm going to just put keep. Oh, I pushed the wrong thing. It's getting late. Okay, hold on.
Doing pretty good.
I'm just
32
trying to
minutes and I feel like we're
accept it.
flying.
Okay, so keep see edits. You all decided that 8/23/22, and the other edits she has are good. I'm going to insert the language from Mandy when I get that, and then when
Okay.
it comes back to you, we'll have a clean copy with recommendations. All right, save and close. 93/21.
Okay.
Closed session,
Looks like no edits.
right? It takes me a little bit longer to go back and forth, so just 93/21. So I don't have, if you're saying there's no edits, any
No edits.
discussion needed?
Keep.
Okay. Where are we? So closed session, we're done with closed session. Agenda and meeting materials 93/22. Is that where we are?
9321.
93/23.
PDF stuff that doesn't have anything for us.
Those are exhibits.
Okay, gotcha.
So 93/22, is that where we were? Okay. There is a note from Carolyn, keep CSBA, but you should also discuss that if we want to add that all agenda item requests be made in writing and turnaround time for placement on agenda. Do you want to add that?
Well, we actually already have that.
Okay.
We just don't enforce it. Right? So do we want to keep it? Do we want to enforce it? And if so, do you want to put on something that says we will put this on an agenda, not at our convenience, but within 2 meetings, 3 meetings, or 6 months, whatever you want.
So I think that, having it in writing is great, but having that turnaround time, I'm a no for that because the calendar dictates the agenda and someone put something in writing. This sounds like it says, someone put something in writing that's going to be addressed within a specific time. We do have issues getting through future agenda items as it is.
So you're suggesting we say item requests be made in writing. And that at the earliest convenience, the board will
Correct.
address those.
There shouldn't be a specified turnaround
Request.
time. Yeah.
I like it.
So the
She's
existing
highlighting there.
language, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you're doing exactly what I was.
Yeah,
saying.
so the existing language just says any board member or member of the public may request that a matter within the jurisdiction of the board be placed on the agenda at a regular meeting. The request shall be submitted in writing to the superintendent or designee with supporting documents and information, if any, at least 1 week before the scheduled meeting date. Items submitted less than a week before the scheduled meeting date may be postponed to a later meeting in order to allow sufficient time for consideration and research of the issue. Board president shall decide whether a request from the member of the public is within the subject matter jurisdiction. Items not within the subject matter jurisdiction may not be placed on the agenda. In addition, before placing the item on the agenda, the board president and superintendent shall determine if it's just a request for information, and if so, respond accordingly. So the board, basically, there's lots of discretion with what you do with items submitted in writing.
I think that's the point. We want as much as possible.
So, so that's a no, maybe to, do you want to put a turnaround time? And there's
No.
already language in here that says that they must be made in writing. So I think both of these comments are addressed.
Agreed.
So I'm going to remove the note, just say keep CSBA. Are there any other edits to this one
I
or
didn't see it.
questions?
Nope.
I'm sorry, I did lose track here.
Mhm.
Are we agreeing that we don't need things in writing?
No, we're asking for them in writing, but we are not saying that there will be a turnaround of a week or 2 weeks to get it on the agenda.
CSBA policy here, am I missing this? Does it include in writing somewhere? Did you just
Mhm.
add that?
Agenda
Yes.
preparation, so under the subtitle, and I don't know that, sorry, the numbers on your document, but the bolded heading is agenda preparation, and then it's paragraph 2.
That's on page 75, paragraph 2. I like that. I like the flexibility. So I'd lose the comments and keep CSBA. Does that feel comfortable, John?
Well, the comment includes this. Actually. Yeah. I guess I'm interpreting this differently. I get to come and say, I would like you to discuss that we get a bull as our mascot for the high school. And I'd
Okay.
like that as an agenda item. And as a member of the public, I'm allowed to suggest that.
Okay.
You say, okay, that's in our purview. And then you say, I will put it on for December 22nd, right before Christmas. I have, the way I interpret this is, I have until the week of the 15th to provide you in writing what I'm really searching for. Now, maybe I'm misreading, but the request shall be submitted in writing to the superintendent within supporting documents, if any, at least 1 week before the scheduled meeting date. So you've already put that on the schedule. Now I get up until at least 1 week before to provide you something in writing. This is a little different than I think what we're considering that it is, which is shall bring something in writing before we put it on the agenda.
I think there's additional language that suggests you can decide if it's within the subject matter jurisdiction. Items outside of that may not be placed on the agenda. In addition, before placing items on the agenda, you can determine if it's a request for information and respond accordingly. So I guess in your circumstance, it wouldn't simply be a request for information. It might be in the purview of the board. So then you're saying you would address things that are in the purview and submitted in a timely fashion, you would put them on the agenda.
I would put them on the agenda and you have up until 1 week before to submit in writing what you're looking for. Is that correct?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense though, really. And
Doesn't.
we don't do it. I mean, we just discuss it in here and say, hey, in the fall, let's make sure we go over
Right.
grades in AP classes. We don't then put it in writing. We just move towards it.
That's correct. We're not following, and our existing policy says the same thing. It's no different.
Okay,
We haven't followed that, and this is what Bolton was kind of honest about a little bit.
so should we strike it? Do we need to have
Or
it?
do you want it added to the agenda only after something is submitted in writing?
You could revise it. So, I mean, there's plenty of latitude in here. There's kind of a note about ensuring reasonable regulations to make sure that members of the public can place matters directly related to the district on board meeting agendas. But again, you have flexibility here with what you do. There's some case law, so districts are free to establish their own timeline for placing an item on the agenda, taking into account staff time, resources, as long as the established timeline is reasonable. In Caldwell versus Roseville Joint Union High School District, a federal court upheld the district law bylaw requiring members of the public to submit a written request in order to place meetings on an agenda. The case involved an alleged violation of the plaintiff's First Amendment right when the district did not place an item on the agenda in response to the plaintiff's oral request. However, the court held that the district's bylaw requiring that request first be made in writing was content neutral and thus reasonable restriction. Not really relevant to what you're
Actually,
saying.
it's very relevant. Under that interpretation, right? What it says is I can stand there
And
and ask
ask.
you, put it on, you can say, I'll put it on December 22nd. If by the 15th of December, I have not provided to you that background in writing, you are free to strike it.
But I think what you guys were talking about was whether or not you're following the practice of if it's written, submitted to you in writing, are you putting it on the agenda if it's been submitted in a timely fashion? And I think the question is that the practice?
It is not the practice. Should it be the practice? Right?
And that's a fair debate.
Personally, I think that we should actually try and enforce this. So we remove. Not fair. Such that we actually get more information as to what is being asked. Answer the questions that are really being asked. And if we don't get something that says, this is my background information, this is what I'd like. Okay, well, we're not going to consider this.
Well, the vast majority of the requests come from us, right? Like, oh, we want to talk about housing, low-income housing, the skate park.
Correct.
That's coming from us.
Correct. That's correct. And actually, for both of those particular items, I have very specifically said we'd like some sort of presentation so we can actually decide if we're even going to decide further,
Gotcha.
right?
So what would you like to see here to just
Well,
wrap this
maybe
up?
this works fine, except we should follow it. You know,
Well, this is the first thing we've kind of run up again that's pretty specific that we just aren't quite doing this.
Well, and it's, we've got two separate pieces here, right? We have one, so what you were talking about and what you'd read is like, okay, so when especially a member of the public comes to us and says, we want to talk about this, we want this as an agenda item, and the board then decides, all right, well, we'll talk about this because of our schedule and other things that, and it's like, we'll be able to talk about this in January 1 or whatever. And
Right.
then that timeline kicks in and that person's notified, all right, this is going to be on the agenda for this particular date. You have up till 7 days before to provide the information for us. We've set the clock. And if you don't have it by then, we're going to kick that off the agenda to a different time. And it's at the board's discretion as to when. Does that sound right to you?
It sounds a little different because we're talking about when it's been submitted in writing versus an oral request. So it sounds like you're saying, hey, we want to talk about skate parks. And then you're saying, sure, we'll talk about it on January 7th. And then, January 1st comes around, they've not submitted anything in writing. That's a little different. This is saying when something has been submitted in writing, they have 7 days to get it on the agenda unless it's just an information item, right? Or you can use your discretion to determine if
Should
it's
it
just
be?
an information item, then how you need to respond to that member of the public.
I believe the language is exactly as Brian just described it.
So that you would, so I guess what I'm saying is this isn't really talking about oral requests for,
I missed that part. You got me on that where it's like.
It
as
just
you
says-
talked about, and this.
Yeah,
talks
so you
about
could-
it being in writing.
so you could have that scenario. I think this is not saying anything about an oral request. It's just saying when you've submitted something in writing, you have a week. Otherwise, if you are not going to place it on the agenda, so let's just go back to the language. It says, any board member or member of the public may request a matter be placed on the agenda. The request shall be submitted in writing to the superintendent or designee with supporting documents, if any, at least 1 week before the scheduled meeting date. So we don't get into pre-conversations or scheduling.
Read
Mhm.
the first sentence says may request. It doesn't describe in what manner that's
Mhm.
requested at all,
Mhm.
correct?
Nope.
Okay. The second sentence says before we finalize it on the agenda, you have a week before, you have to provide something in writing,
Before it's on the agenda.
before we finalize that agenda.
So again, the first, and it's going to be going the 7th. So essentially, it just makes us up our game a little. We're a little too relaxed about this. And this would kind of force a higher level of delivery. And I think it's not bad that we keep it the way it is and just start to enforce it. Say this is the expectations and just train ourselves to put that out there. Does that feel comfortable? Mr. Swanson?
Oh, yeah, fine. I mean, if I'm not going to, but I mean, if I would rewrite this at some point, if I were in charge of all this stuff, because I think. the
Ambiguity. It's a
conversation
little-
that we're
yeah,
having right now
ambiguity
And it
is
goes
can
right.
be
to-
revised to reflect more specific practices. If you require something outside of this, it's just, I think written the way that it is, you all could offer something additional. Do we want to maybe make a note that says something about how, I don't know, I don't think this feels different than maybe what you're doing, but is that what you're saying, is you would like this tightened up to reflect some more specific
I
process?
think leave it
We need
exactly
to
as
be,
is.
leave it as it is and we need to tighten up.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
okay, keep.
okay. Let's see if she had any other notes here.
No.
So no turnaround, I mean, so this is as is. So I'm gonna get rid of this note that says, should we? We've had the discussion. There's some implication for practice here, but the policy stays as is.
Yes. Implication for practice. That means it's on us.
Keep,
We're doing pretty good. We're flying.
all right, save and close. So 9323 meeting conduct.
This has our 10 o'clock limit.
The language straight from the agenda.
Yeah, it's actually straight out of CSBA.
So do we want to, hold on, let me open it up so we can, 9320.
10 PM unless extended.
So there may be no need, it seems like, in the other policy to state it there as well, but.
Yeah, it's stated right there. It's good.
So, and there's no note on this one.
Nope, let's keep it.
So I'm gonna go back to that place where I asked Mandy to send language. I don't think it needs to be in two places. Are we okay with taking that out wherever we were gonna make that edit?
I don't think I am because I know this is way over here, but I liked it up where it is because it keeps us on track as far as media. I keep it both places.
Okay,
I
should we say
normally-
the exact same thing?
Yes, exactly the same, whatever Mandy sends in the first one and then in here as well.
Okay, and just confirming, it says the same thing, regular board meeting shall be adjourned at 10 unless extended, blah, I mean, not
Yeah.
blah, but
We
et
are
cetera.
blah, blah right now.
Right.
So by a majority, and it
cetera.
can only be extended once.
Right,
Perfect.
so we're taking that same statement and putting that in the,
Perfect.
okay. Okay, no other edits or questions here?
No, keep.
All right. 9323.2, actions by the board.
I skipped it. I've screwed up, huh?
I don't see any notes from Carolyn.
Oh, no, no notes. So excited.
Any,
Woohoo!
Pardon me,
questions?
you're on what number?
9323.2, actions by the board.
Thank you.
Nothing there? Are we okay?
do in 9323 addresses 3 minutes 20. Now would be the time if there's any suggestion to change that to 2 minutes 20 or 3 minutes 40 or some other number.
3 minutes speaking
Yeah, 3 minutes.
feels good to
20
me.
per thing. Okay.
And
Saying this is the time.
no, this is it. I like 3 minutes. Feels good.
All right, so we're going back to, sorry. Where was that?
It's on page 90,
On 9323.2?
9324.
Oh, we've gone ahead of me. Okay,
So
We're trying to wrap this up. No offense.
no
We're
problem.
moving it.
you're on page what? 94? So the next question along that 3 minutes.
Yeah, talk to us.
Should we have a very formal statement that says you may not transfer time to the next person? From the next person?
They've asked and we've said no, but let's have it in
Shall we
our
have it in
policy.
writing?
You are just cut them off at the pass
So how do we add that to policy?
in English.
Okay.
Because we've already said the Google.
We have a legal expert here who can tell us how to do that.
You have a CSBA policy expert. I can tell you, we might not have what you're looking for. So
We'll make
As
it up.
policy expert, we defer to your best James Joyce.
Can you add it simply to that line of the 3 minutes and say, time may not be
Transferred,
transferred or
shared.
or yielded
Yeah,
to others?
unused time may not be.
It's not like candy. Keep it
transferred
to yourself.
Yeah, something like that.
Shall not be.
So the sentence is
Just
shall
come
not
up.
be, sorry, I'm not even on the same policy as you guys. You are a little quicker than my software today. So
Well, that's how we roll here.
speedy. All right.
Board, thank you. The only time that this is, one time when I was president, there was a speaker requesting and her husband got up immediately behind and said, I defer my time.
They just try to do it during
I
the mask.
regretted,
You let them.
I let him and I regretted that ever since. So I
Yeah.
appreciate having this. in-
And you warned me
it was a
for the
mistake.
masking because remember the guy said, I don't know as much as my friend over here. I want to give her my time.
Okay.
We should definitely-
And we
Thank you
said,
very much.
yeah, no,
Alright.
you're right. Have it be there.
From the minutes, board shall be signed, location according to law. Where are we making this edit?
I'm trying to find where we are too. Do you guys see where that would be? Recordings, that's not here. Oh, I don't know where it is.
Are you on 9324?
I was
We're
on,
just kind of everywhere right now. Where, we
I-
want it with
I
a
was on,
3-minute
I was on
speaking.
9323. Where in 9323 that goes now, I don't know.
Well, let's get back to 9323. Point 2? No. Absolutely strong. Meeting conduct, here we go. Public participation, it should be there, yes. They have the opportunity. Where is it? Number 5 on page 79.
In public.
Yeah.
Photo time and. Okay.
So did you hear where we, 79?
Yes, so you want it added on number 5.
I think so.
What I can do for you.
Well, adjust the amount of time allowed for public input and or the time allotted for each speaker. A speaker may not
I got some good language. here,
yield,
President
share. Did you
Dawson.
have something there?
Yeah, that's from West Virginia, so take it for what it's worth, but the
From West
speaker-
Virginia?
I need to be
You're
careful about
surfing the
saying
entire
that's another
nation?
disparaging remark. I need to stop doing that. West Virginia is an amazing state.
It's almost heaven.
Okay, share your
A
words,
speaker
sir.
may not cede time to another speaker.
Seed, as in,
CEDE.
Cede, give up, surrender.
give over, yield.
There you goes.
There it goes.
Betcha.
There, yeah, betcha.
Reasonable regulations limiting.
Oh, that's a good one. Mr. Paff, that's a good one to add.
Okay. All right, sorry, give it to me one more time. So I'm just gonna read the sentence before a person wishing to be heard by the board president shall first be recognized, then proceed to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Is that where we want it at the end of that first sentence?
No,
After it says, in general, individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item, and the board will limit the total time for public input. It
To
may
no-
be,
to 20 minutes and then say a
If-
speaker may not cede,
Speaker
may
may
not
not
cede to another
time
seed.
To another speaker.
Cede time to another.
everything else looks good.
Heck, yeah.
All right. And just so I'm doing my due diligence, government code authorizes reasonable regulations limiting the total amount of time allocated for public testimony on particular issues for each individual speaker. Such reasonable regulations must ensure that the intent of allowing the public an adequate opportunity to speak to the board is carried out. You may revise what you've done, so. Okay, any other edits here while we're in 9323?
No. I don't see him.
I'm gonna say keep. 8:23.
Oh, there's a bunch more.
Saving and closing that one. I did want to go back because I saw a note from I think it's Carolyn, saying you all don't have one of the exhibits that we have. They'll all come back to you, so there'll be an opportunity to strike them if you don't want them.
Sure.
So I think that might be the correct place to say if there's something that's been added, if you don't want to keep it, you can always remove it before you vote on it. But that was, I believe, 93. Actions by the board, actions by the board. It's the exhibit 9323.2. Unconditional commitment. My preference is to send all of these to you all. Are you okay with that? And then you
Yeah.
can determine later if you want to keep them. You can always get rid of them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay.
Because we don't know what we don't know, so.
And
send
I
it.
like to look at them all together. So when you're referencing the things that, you might not have had before, you have all the supporting documents, and then you can decide if for whatever reason this wouldn't be applicable. It's not saying you have to use it. It's just saying here, it's available if you need this.
Okay, perfect.
All right, 9324 minutes and recordings. I don't have any notes from anyone on that one.
Nope.
Are we okay with keeping as is?
Keep.
Is that from your old policy? Oh, I'm sorry. Were there any comments though, or do you
Don't
all
go
want to have a
rogue on us
conversation?
right now, Mr. Paff. We're over here. We want to keep what you got.
9324, we're okay with minutes and
Yeah.
recordings?
Yes.
Yeah, so do we want to talk really quickly about that?
9324.
What's the, okay.
That's,
I have them side by side.
Mhm. Okay. No problem. All right. We are moving on to 9400 board self-evaluation. I don't see any comments or edits or notes
I
for
don't
discussion. Are we all set there?
yep, keeper,
All
like a
right.
big fish.
So if we don't have a corresponding document, we will typically ask you all if you want to keep the language. We won't review your language for content and consistency with the law. Is that something you want us to add back?
9323.1.
Oh, hold on, let me make sure.
What's the title? Start point
Oh,
one.
what is
Order
it?
of business. It's, we shall have a call to order, roll call, adoption of agenda, closed session, reconvene, et cetera.
Well, and you want to change that?
Just wanna know if we still want change, and there was at least one suggested change since 2017. The written communication, board member comments, superintendent report, and then we have I.1, which is staff on non-agenda items, which we
I like how it is. Old fashioned.
Would you like us to add that one? Because if you don't let me know, it wouldn't go into go back into the manual.
Yes, please.
Yes, so that's one thing. I think that's the only. I think that's the only one.
You know,
I
you
need to
just
make a
mention
note
it
of.
and it's there.
Okay,
This is how
I'm
life
gonna
should be.
say 9321. Is that what?
9323.1.
So the only thing I'll say is 9323.1. So we don't have one yet. That doesn't mean another district doesn't have that number. If another district is using that number, we'd have to just give you a new code.
Perfect.
So I will keep this very important bylaw.
Stop, don't gum up the works here.
But I think, and I don't want to speak too soon.
Oh, we hear it coming.
We've reached the end
What? With 2 minutes to spare?
of
I
our
have a question.
bylaw.
I have a question I did want to do with the board here tonight. And we ran out of time the other night because we didn't get through it. Community Human Services, I'm the rep. I need an alternate. 2 people on the board have expressed interest that they would like to be the alternate. I just need the board to direct me how we should do this. Should there be a vote? Should I have the 2 people's names and people tell me who they would like to have represent us? I need an opinion. I need you to care for the next 10 seconds. Oh, come on. Coin, what do you think, sir?
I wouldn't go for a coin, really. I would go for 2 names and a hat, maybe. I mean, I think I know which 2 board members are interested because it's not John and it's not me. And I think both are qualified.
Yeah,
And they would serve well. So that's as fair as anything, you know.
well,
It's
the
just
other
a-
thing is to, the other way to look at it is in December when I'm gone, one could then become rep and one could become the alternate at that time. With the same idea as we have vice president, knowing that it's sequentially, they'll each have their chance. Although that normally you get on there and stay there, sir. Oh, okay. Jennifer, please.
Hi, thanks. I'm just curious, was this item on the agenda tonight, the discussion of this?
Point, and no.
No.
Should it be discussed then?
Yeah, we're just talking about how to move forward. It's not being done. It's just the looking at how would we do it? And what I had been advised previously is just at the end of a meeting, just kind of throw it out there and get some guidance from the group. So, Hat? Okay, all right, that's all I needed. But it's good you're still with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you, Jennifer.
I want to go ahead and take a second because we're coming to a close. Again, I want to really thank both trustee Swanson's, Carolyn and Brian for their work previously that made tonight so much better because you'd done so much effort. Previously, we could kind of flow through. And to Zita, to juggle these different things. And it's like, what is that old expression? Herding cats. And to be here within a minute of what our expected end time is and to actually be there's wonderful. And all the support people here to just really making the board better. So thank you so much for your time.
You are very welcome. It's my pleasure. On behalf of Greg and the rest of our team, we're happy to help you guys through these. It makes the work easier for us when we have to process them. So thanks for your contributions and for having me.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Of course.
All right. And thank you, everybody who listened in and it's a tough one and we just appreciate the support. Thank you so much.
Madam President, is there any other session happening or that's not happening? Closed sessions closed? Are you?
Closed session, could we for like less than 5 minutes? I promise less than 5 minutes.
Okay,
all
we'll
right.
need to come back to announce.
Okay, we will
report out.
come back to announce that.
You'll need to report out after closed session, just a reminder.
Do I hear a motion to extend the meeting?
motion to extend the meeting.
We could do it if you guys would prefer. We could do it next on the first, or just do it right now.
Knock it out.
Okay. All right.
Have
I
to
second
announce
that.
What we're going into closed session
Yes.
for.
We are going into closed session this evening on the superintendent's evaluation. Okay.
And yes,
Potential litigation.
Okay, and potential litigation. So we want to extend to,
is there any public comment?
Any
prior
public
to going
comment,
into
please?
closed session?
Extend no more than 9 o'clock.
okay, we will extend no more than 9 o'clock. Roll call vote. Yes,
Trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Cap.
Aye.
Trustee Bryant.
Aye.
okay, we'll report out at 9. This meeting. I want to reopen this meeting and report out from closed section. At the end of closed session, information was received, direction was given, and no action was taken. So we will adjourn this evening's meeting